In accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Zoning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Board members, applicants, professionals, members of the public, please speak directly into microphones so our recording secretary can properly process minutes. Applicants and professionals, please fill out the sheet on the table when you've completed your testimony. Thank you. And I think we can now call the roll.
Okay. Alan Rich asked to be excused this evening. Cheryl Bethia? Here. Richard Prokanic?
Here.
Vasim Verdas?
Here.
Gary Rosenthal?
Here.
Robert Shepard?
He's
Oh, I see him. Mike Doherty?
Here.
Kunal Lakia?
Here.
And Chairman
Here.
Thomas.
here. No minutes to approve. Anything else going down to the hearings? And right now there's one hearing for this evening. Tawhid Dawa Center, ZBA 240017, amended preliminary and final site plan, plus relief of conditions in which the applicant is proposing construction of a 19,350 square foot place of worship at 630 South Middlebush Road, Somerset, Block 37.02, Lot 4603 in the Zone A. This has been carried since or from February 18th. We've had some previous testimony, and would you like to bring us all up to date from your point of view where we're at this point? Just a quick...
My name is Brian Schwartz, and
Was it green?
No.
Push it down and hold it down.
I pressed the button back there. I think that got done. That's what
Until he comes in.
got it. Okay, Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is Brian Schwartz, Hanna, Olson & Taus. I represent the applicant. We've had 2 nights of testimony. We started November 19th. You have the minutes of that meeting, of that hearing, as well as the minutes from February 18th. So far, we've heard from our applicant at length on November 19th. We heard last time from our engineer and our architect. In the meantime, our engineer and architect submitted revised plans. They're very small changes, but nevertheless, I want them to come up and identify what the changes were. One addressed parking, and Mr. Ardman will talk about that. And the other one was the architect who redid the floor plan to show a more realistic number of prayer mats in the prayer area. And I think that's important information. So, and like I said, those plans were submitted more than 10 days ago. And so they will talk very briefly about those 2 items. Then we intend to go on with our traffic engineer, Mr. Poliniak. He will testify. And then our final witness is our planner, Kevin O'Brien. So unless there's any questions, we'll proceed with Mr. Ardman.
That sounds good.
I guess I have a question. Maybe it's actually more appropriately brought to the staff, but we got a letter today from the Reynolds Group that was deposited on our next to where we were going to sit. So I've taken a look at it, and I imagine that there'll be a great deal of discussion of this because it seems to be a point raised by the objector. But my question is, it's dated April 2nd. When did we get it?
Yeah, we got it around that time. It's been on the website since, and when Christine emailed the agenda to you, it was on that link on the website. And then the objecting attorney as well submitted some information. We treated it the same way.
Okay.
Mr. Orman, you're still under oath.
If I could just address Mr. Shepard's comment, we don't intend to talk about that tonight. It's really a rebuttal And so we reserve our right to have Mr. Ardman recalled after we hear from obviously we haven't heard the testimony from the objector's witness, and so he has nothing to rebut but he wanted to put that in writing so that the board had in front of you.
Okay, now he's going to testify on the
He's going to testify
potential
what you see.
changes.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So we have up on the screen a rendering, and this was submitted also in that package to the board. And that the basic premise of this package deals with parking, as Brian said. What came up at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, and from Mr. Healy, was based on the discussion relating to the number of people at a prayer service. And you heard testimony on that, and as you heard, it's in the minutes there. And I look back at my notes as well. So typically 60 people at a prayer service, a higher one, 70 to 80. But on those kind of holier days, there might be up to 150 people. And that was the testimony from the applicant, and that was also submitted as part of the notification to the board as to the intent of the use on the property.
And that is, you're saying 50, but that's it looks like there's 5 services a day. So each service would have 50?
Mr. Shepard, we submitted as part of our application, in fact, it's in evidence as A1, Exhibit A1, our statement of proposed use. And we were specific and detailed in the number of people we expected at a prayer meeting. And truthfully, the only time we're going to be even up in the 50s area is the one evening prayer meeting. Otherwise, it's going to be even lower than that. So the answer to is yes. Each of these prayer meetings are like a half an hour long, and there will not be more than that number or 60 or 70 at that one prayer meeting.
Okay, well, when he was speaking a moment ago, he said, yeah, there'll be 50 people there, and I just wanted to make that entirely clear. It's also in notes of the TRC discussing how many people were going to be at each service and how many services there were per day, and I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding what was going on.
Yeah.
So Mr. Ardman is always pretty good.
No, there's something I'd like to follow up on that before you start, because it's something that I was concerned about too. When you use numbers like no more than 50 or 60 or whatever it is that they turn out to be, where do those numbers come from?
From the other mosques that my people operate and from their experience with other mosques in the area. The testimony on November 19th was there are a lot of mosques in the area. This board has approved a number of them. And there are 2 other mosques that are operated by the same group. And so they know from the experience, because they're still going to keep those mosques open. It's not like they're going to close them. From their experience, they know how many people come to these meetings. And it's based upon that experience that they know that this is going to be the limit. And let me go further, Mr. Chairman. This is really critical. Okay? We committed ourselves in our application of how many people there are going to be. We then committed ourselves with Mr. Razi's testimony under oath. Each of our professionals is getting up here and using that number. If those numbers are greatly exceeded, basically everybody has lied, okay? And, that's a strong thing to have happen. We are committing ourselves to these numbers. But this isn't just some number that next week we're going to say, oh, did we say 50? We meant 70. We put this in writing, and every professional has talked about this number.
Well, my concern about the validity of the numbers and how they're arrived at is that, if these are greatly exceeded, that means that this facility will have been approved and is operating, and then there is absolutely nothing that really can be done about it, and that becomes a big problem. It's not like you said, these numbers are critical, but who's at the door counting, and is it possible to find a way to get a much more objective to count on this. Does this congregation have services presently at another facility?
Yes, at other mosques. If-
Right.
I
Is it
prefer-
possible to have somebody count people at those services? You know, that's more
Mr. Thomas?
independent.
Mr. Thomas, this board approved an application 3 years ago, 23 years ago. It was the same situation. These people came in and they said, this is how many people we're going to have here. All right. Any application you have, there's representations as to how it's going to be used. And the board relies on those representations. All right. And so I don't know why. I'm looking at page 12 of your minutes. Mr. Rozzi said exactly how many people are going to be there. And so I'm not sure why you're singling out this applicant, of why you don't believe, or you're having trouble believing them. We've put in everything in writing. We've committed ourselves as much as we possibly can. There is no basis for this board to say, well, we believed the applicant 3 years ago, we don't believe you.
Well, I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because in the previous application, we spent over a year working toward an approval. And one of the very big concerns that I still have, and there's lots of testimony to go, so it can all change and evolve, but intensity of use is an issue for me right now, or a potential issue. You mentioned the other one, and nobody said anything about the numbers or anything, but that facility was proposed to be used 5 days a month. 5 days a month. This one is proposed to be used, if I'm not mistaken, 5 times a day, daily.
Yes.
That's a big difference in the intensity of the use.
In fewer
I think
numbers.
that's a very important issue.
It's in fewer numbers, and just as you expected that applicant 3 years ago was going to abide by their word, we expect that you have no basis whatsoever to think that this applicant is not going to abide by their word. And if you see 100 cars out there, if you see droves of people there, or the neighbors who are so concerned about this, they're going to call up your zoning office, they're going to call up your zoning department. It's going to be awfully easy to shut this down.
Well, that's
Okay.
easy for us to say here, harder to put into
Well, you know
action.
what? This
And
board's
we're
not-
actually, I'm not going to speak for the whole board. I'm interested in avoiding those problems, not reacting to them after the building's built, functioning, and working, and then we have a problem that can't be solved.
Mr. Thomas, I don't know what more I can say other than we've put in writing what we're going to do, and there's no
Well, it
basis for
concerns
this
me
board.
that the building is close to 4 times bigger than what your services, and I understand, I saw the chart with the floor mats and everything like that, but yes, you're building a slightly smaller building than the previous approval, but the worship area is over 20% bigger. And not only is it an issue of traffic and intensity, it's an issue of when during the day do you reach capacity for the septic system?
Well, that's why septic, you're not talking about something different, but we have our professional testimony from our traffic engineer who will explain the traffic situation, that there is not a traffic problem. And quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, board members, there's nothing more that I or my client can say or do other than we've sworn that this is what we're going to do. We've put in all our papers, our application. There's nothing more we can say. The questions came up during the last application. My client has explained how they use the room, that they have a prayer session, a group prayer session, then they go to different areas of the room in order to have private prayers between them and their deity. That's how they pray. And I'm not going to repeat myself over and over that we can't do much more than put it right in our testimony and in our documentation, and Mr. Rozzi's testimony is in your minutes.
The numbers that you're supplying are provided to you by your applicant, correct?
Yes.
My question is, why can't we have some independent, objective verification of those numbers. You mentioned the traffic report. There's nobody there's nobody on behalf of that is part of the applicant congregation standing out there counting cars. You hire a traffic engineer. Isn't there somebody that can be found who could provide numbers that we could have more confidence in?
I don't know who that would be, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it's your application. You want to
It
get
is.
it approved, so that's a suggestion I'm making.
It's my application. I don't want to keep repeating myself. I've probably said the same thing 5 times. If for some reason you don't believe these religious people and you believed other religious people, there's not much I can do about that.
Mr. Thomas, can I add? Can I say something? This is Kunal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So let me refer, first of all, I think it was the first hearing, and pardon me if it was first or second, okay? Only when we found out and we objected, that website was taken down. There were people whose funds were solicited. I don't know what's happening with that fund, and it's not my concern particularly. But the intentions stated there are very different from here. Now let me come to the document that you have submitted. And maybe you can explain this to me. At the top portion, you're talking about, during special events, about 150 people at a time. If I talk 5 service, that's 750. While you cannot exceed 458 as per the septic system approval. While you scroll down, you're talking about the same number as 70 and 80. So which number is true? And it talks about special events like Ramadan. I'm looking at your document, and if I may read it.
Yeah, so there's special events, occasional
Friday is the one, not every
special
Friday.
events.
Yes,
And we said that if there's a special event, we'll get a special use permit.
yes.
Okay? So that's not the daily, the typical
Only Friday,
5
okay?
prayer
The rest,
sessions a
fight
day,
time is less
which
than
are
50
said
people.
later on,
So he's
is
multiplying
no
that.
more than 50 or 60 people. So you're talking about 2 different things. You're talking about a special event for which we will get a special use permit, and the daily prayer sessions, which will be 50 or 60 people.
And so, and that possibly, Mark, that might be a question for you. So on a special permit, like, and on the holy days, and it can be in any religion, there is likely to be more practitioners coming and praying. The day limit, it says, is 458 on the septic system. And how does, like, and if they are asking for special event permits for 150 people at a time, which kind of comes to 750, how is that addressed? Is the system, because that's substantially larger than 458.
So you're looking at me. I mean, there's two different limitations. I mean, one is there is that 458 people that can be on the site throughout the course of an entire day. So at the end of this, no matter what, if at the end of the day you have some parameters that you agree with, they can't exceed that. Period. I mean, it's not. We don't need to clap. I mean, this is just, and I will just say to the public, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Comments from the public is frankly not appropriate. If at the time, you'll have your opportunity to comment and ask questions. But just like in a court of law, you can't comment and make jeers and comments from the public, respectfully. But that's just fact. I mean, the limitation of the septic system is going to be 458. So they could propose 500 and have, 3 sessions of 500. You can't approve that, period. I think that answers that. I mean, that ultimately, that's absolutely going to be a cap. Whether you're satisfied with the information and I mean, obviously that's an ongoing discussion. of what limits you may place.
Thank you. And to answer, and this I'm only speaking for myself, about what's the difference between this applicant versus the old applicant, and I know you tried to give a tone of religion associated with it. The difference between both the applications was that that particular applicant didn't have a website claiming that they were going to build schools and other things. They came with a very clear application about what they wanted to do right from the very beginning.
I explained why what happened with the website. I'm sorry. Mr. Thomas, may I respond to the gentleman?
Closer to the mic, please. Closer. Closer. See how close I am? There you go.
Okay.
Because what you're saying is going to be important downstream. I can just feel it.
Okay. I feel like Mick Jagger now, but that's okay. May I respond to the gentleman? Okay. I don't know what more I can say than what I already said about the website, which was when the applicant first bought the property, we did not have the resolution. We did not know the limitations. We didn't know anything about it, and they put that website up. My fault, when we got the resolution and we made the application to, as close as possible, mirror the previous approval, I didn't go back to the client and say, hey, take down the website. It wasn't really on my mind. As soon as I told my client, hey, you still got that website up, it came down. There's nothing more I can say about that. I do want to address, sir, though, about the difference in the two applications. Muslims pray differently, okay? They have more prayer meetings with fewer people. They do it during the week and not on the weekend. We're going to have a traffic guy who's going to explain what impact, if any, and I'll tell you right now, there's very, very little impact he'll testify to of these small group prayer meetings. But I really think you were conflating the special events that may occur, the special times during the high holidays, with the prayer meetings every day. If my client goes in and says, it's Ramadan, I want to have 150 people there 5 times a day, like Mr. Healy said, they're not going to apply for that because they're going to get refused. If they come in and they say, we're going to have 50, but then at 5 o'clock we're going to have 150, and then we're going to have 50 again, maybe that's reasonable, okay? So don't read. I tried really hard to craft this statement of proposed use carefully, and maybe there was a confusion about that. The special use permits are going to have to come back, and the way I see this, if anybody cares, the way I see this happening is my client's going to start off. They're going to have 50 people, 60 people at a meeting. Things are going to go really well. You get to Ramadan, the special use permit's applied for. The zoning officer, whomever it is in the building department, will say, well, things have been going well. We're going to let you have one meeting where there's 150 people, okay? But we're not going to let you have it at every meeting or something. Maybe the next year they're doing really well and they're going to let a couple more. But otherwise, they're going to go back to that 50 or 60. Because if we're banking parking spaces and you see cars parked up on grass and stuff, it's pretty obvious there's a violation here. I mean, it's not some kind of surreptitious prayer meeting happening in a basement. It's going to be pretty obvious. If there's a problem, you're going to see it. And what I'm saying is I'm relying on what my client has sworn to and what all our documents say, and I'm saying this for the 12th time, and I apologize. This is what we intend to do. If we somehow don't do what we're saying we're doing, well, then we know there's going to be consequences. And there's not much more I can say. I'm dealing with religious people who have taken an oath, and I don't know what more I can say. They're not closing down other mosques. This is going to be kind of an auxiliary mosque, and it's going to be limited in number of people. There's nothing more I can say. I don't know what I can say, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? I don't know what else to say.
Mr. Thomas, if we can finish the testimony, and if you still have qualms at the end, and there's something more, I don't know what more assurances, but let's address it then. Okay, can we at least, get some of the high-priced help up here and finish with them?
Let's move on then to Mr. Hardman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I have up on the screen here is our dimension plan R1. This was submitted in that package that Mr. Healy noted ahead of time to the board. It's similar to the one that I had presented last time. You'll see on the plan the designation is Board of Adjustment banked parking exhibit with a date of 04/01 of 2026. And the purpose of, again, preparing this, again, the chairman, Mr. Healy, wanted our numbers to basically coincide with each other. If you're going to have maximum 150 people at any one time, and there's a good point by Mr. Shepard, it does happen over the course of the day, that's the max number that the parking is going to be shooting for. And I've worked with this board, as you know, many, many times. You want enough parking. You don't want parking problems. We don't want parking problems. We know any overflows is only going to be on the lawn, which nobody wants to see. I know some of the other houses of worship in town, problems can be they park on the street, they park in neighborhoods around the corner. That's not an option here. So we need to make sure the parking fits on site. So as I said, the 150 people at one time is the max. Again, what I was saying is a good point about the numerous prayer sessions is that, as you heard, they're short, and that's the standard at prayer at the mosque, 30 minutes, and there's spacing in between. So there's not the overlap that we're going to worry about. That's something that I asked and our traffic engineer asked pretty early on. Are these going to blend into each other that's going to be an issue? And as they described the prayer services, they're spread apart far enough, they're short enough, that's not an issue. So we're at 150 maximum. So I took a look, your ordinance has a provision for certain parking at one per three people, which would be 50. But we all want to be conservative here. Again, nobody wants a problem. So 1 per 2 would be 75 spaces. So we said that would be the floor of what we should need, not the max. So what we're showing here is, and I'm pointing on the screen to the exhibit, there are...
Can you enlarge that?
Yeah, let me... One more. Now it moves. Give me 1 minute. Okay. So we were always, the originally approved application banked 30 spaces, which are the ones that back up on our neighbors on South Middlebush, and I'm pointing to them on the exhibit. What we said is we can bank another 30 spaces in that area. So this full area would be banked. And those were the most appropriate spaces. Again, they're the closest to any neighbors, and we're trying not to pave where we don't need to pave. As you heard me say, 75 would kind of be a minimum of my number. This would give us 92 spaces plus another 88 spaces for 97 total. And with 150 people, I think that's an appropriate number with a buffer there for parking. And again, we're confident in that at any one time, without overlap on parking from other prayer services, that 150 number. And so that's what I just wanted to show the board with this exhibit. And it's really just limited to that. And again, since questions were raised to get the parking squared with the number of participants or people praying.
What is the surface going to be of the bank parking spaces?
It would be lawn.
All right, so you're increasing the pervious area and
Yeah.
decrease.
And even with that, if there were area we didn't have to disturb where there were some existing trees there that could remain trees, they could stay trees as well.
And you're reducing the amount of front yard parking,
Correct.
and you're increasing the buffer from the residential properties along the road.
Exactly.
All right. That's all the questions I had of this witness.
I just have one comment on the layout. If at the end of the day, this gets incorporated into a board decision, I would just recommend that the spaces that are land banked are reconfigured so you don't have a big dead-end parking lot. If this gets full, and then what do they do? Just then, Mitch, we
Yep.
always try to discourage
Turn around.
that. So If it ends up being 60 spaces, you'd have to reconfigure that so it's not a dead-end parking lot.
Right. We could keep maybe a one-way drive to loop around as you come to the end, and we could keep just that drive there, but we would happily work with staff and come up with the most efficient layout.
I'm sure you can figure it out.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Just one comment I would add too, with land banking on other projects, when there is land banking, there's usually a full-face curb to prevent people from parking in the grass area, so it's something that if it's were to move forward and be approved, we'd be looking for as well.
Yeah, that's appropriate, and we'd agree to that.
I didn't quite hear what our engineer said. Did he say that the parking lot should be curbed?
Just the area that would be banked to curb around it so people aren't driving onto the open space or lawn area to park. And we agreed.
Okay, all right. So what did the original application provide for in terms of parking spaces?
It provided, the total number was 157 with 30 land banked. So 127.
Okay, and yours is, what you're proposing here is?
Would be 97 with 60 banked.
With 60 banked?
Yes.
So there'd be 30 spaces?
No. There
97 plus 60.
97 built, 97 constructed.
Okay.
And on top of that, room for 60 more designed.
Right, those are, the 60 would be banked.
Correct.
Okay, but 97 would be made.
Correct.
Now, here's a question that I don't know the answer to, and I don't know whether Mr. Healy knows the answer or our attorney knows the answer. They come to and they use the 97 spaces, and they realize that because people are coming in cars by themselves or what other non-nefarious reason, they don't have enough spaces. Do they have to come back here to get more spaces, or is it just, how does that work?
Well, I think the answer on a typical application, so let me answer, I'll answer it that way. Let's say this was a shopping center, and they went to the board, and our ordinance requires 100 spaces, and the board has a discussion with the applicant, and it's agreed, okay, we're only going to build 75. That's really what we need. We're going to bank the other 25. And they happen to get a tenant, a restaurant that happens to have a higher parking demand. They can, so part of the reason in land banking, what they do is the site plan, they actually design it. So it's on the approved site plans, how it's going to be graded and drained and where the lights are going to be, the landscaping is going to be. So basically it's kind of approved, but they're just not building it. They're going to leave it grass unless they need it. So if it's already incorporated on the site plan, they can basically come to the zoning department and say, we're going to improve those spaces. I would probably go to Darren, and we'd probably have a discussion about, just to make sure that the site plan is good to go, but they can go and build it. Conversely, the zoning officer, if there's a parking problem, we can require them, if they're parking on the grass, parking in the detention basin, we can require them to finish those next 25 spaces. The reason I used a retail requirement example is that's a little more straightforward. If they, in this situation, it may not be that simple because, well, why are they having a parking problem? So we'd have to look into that. Are they, is there some other reason why they're not, why they need more parking? Are they not complying with the approvals? So it would be, I think, a little bit more complicated in this case.
Okay, so then, the way that you've explained it to me, the resolution could also read that they've banked 30 spaces, but if they want to use them, they got to come back to the board for approval.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good question. I think, again, what I explained was the more typical, but I would think if you wanted them to come back and not just let the zoning officer permit the construction, I would think that's an appropriate
Make that
condition.
as a condition of approval if you choose to.
Yeah.
I would want to make sure that they have to come back, because I think that's one of the few guardrails we have. That indication that they might need that extra 30 could also be an indication that there might be a growing congregation. So that would be worthwhile knowing. The other thing in your letter, April 2nd, just in the interest of consistency, you're building 97 parking spaces. That's what you said, right?
Right. There, I referenced 92 plus the ADA spaces, so it wasn't as clear there, but
So there's 6 ADAs?
or 92 plus 5 is 97.
Okay,
Yep.
just so the
Yep.
total's 97. Okay.
Correct, Mr. Chairman. And the site actually has been fully designed for drainage, for lighting, for landscaping, for the full build-out, as Mark noted.
I just have one question. Coming back to this bank parking, why not just remove the parking from the application altogether? Why bank it?
Well, I think it gives the board, with the condition that was placed, to say, you know, they're here, it's a use, either Mark can make them put them in, or, because maybe it is one per car, and it's still within all the numbers that we've said. So it leaves all the discretion at the board's hand, either now or in the future.
You think we would have less power as a board, less discretion by approving bank parking as opposed to it being outright eliminated and a new site plan application needing to be filed should that parking be required?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, in that case, do you have more discretion? Probably, but, I mean, we're here with a fully, designed application. I don't see how much less you would have by keeping it banked, honestly, but, it's your call.
I think it just speaks to the concerns of the board and the public that you're making allocations for what could be perceived as future growth.
Sir, part of it is we're asking for a parking variance, and you're suggesting that we reduce the potential parking even further. You're asking us to make the variance even
further exasperating the variance.
Yes, yeah. And so, that's the anomaly that you have us in.
Yeah, and understood. And we have approached applications like that in the past where the applicant truly felt they did not need that surplus parking. But to that same point, if you're trying to demonstrate that you could be compliant with the parking, then why wouldn't you bank all the 180 whatever is required, or there's the difference?
Well, we need parking.
No, of course.
I mean, there's no street parking. We're not going to park along the driveway. We don't want to park on the grass. So, where the dialogue that's going on right now is that the board's going to retain some, not jurisdiction, but retain authority to, in the case there's a need to use these additional spaces. Would I rather it not be such a condition? No, but I'm not surprised the board's talking about the condition. I mean, it makes sense because, again, you're relying on what my client's saying, and my client's essentially saying we're not going to need those spaces. But if it's fully engineered, why not just leave it there, and we still, the applicant would still have to come back here. You'd have to review, why the heck do you need more spaces? So you're still keeping that authority, but you're engineering the project so that you know that if necessary, those spaces can be utilized.
Yeah, I just appreciate the response. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
No, I answered your question. I mean, what you're basically doing is creating more work for Mr. Hack and me, because then we'd have to figure out what the burden of proof and all that kind of stuff is on the applicant. But you're not thinking in those terms right now. You're just thinking, I want to be sure we have some control over this.
Just trying to get you guys some billable hours.
Mr. Hack is independently wealthy. I can't speak for myself.
I think that's really what I was
we're done
going
with
to
this
present
witness.
for today.
All right, any other board questions? Anyone? All right, before we open to the public, and I know you heard me say it before, we're talking about what you just heard. I don't want to go off on any tangents. You have your opportunity coming to present your own case later.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And this is not on. It was green. Did you move it? It's green again. Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, Chair.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Martina Bailey. I'm here representing John and Ray Snyder, who are the neighbors with the farm, the Snyder farm, next to the subject property. Just a couple of follow-up questions. And I know not only do I think that the board would have no discretion, I have less discretion, I think the board actually would have no choice but to approve additional spaces if they were banked and approved as banked versus if the board considered a variance for 97 spaces only. The flip side of the question Mr. Prokanik asked, I'll ask, which is, given all these questions and the uncertainty and the likelihood or possibility that the congregation could grow, why not just build the additional parking spaces?
Is that a question to Mr. Hardman?
Yes.
So I'll leave it to the board's discretion, as I always do. My engineering judgment is what I presented. I know the board in the past has wanted to limit site clearing, additional paving, if in cases that we think it's appropriate. I think this is appropriate. That's why I presented this.
Very well. We would certainly ask as a condition of this approval that the applicant would have to come back for approval to construct the banked parking spaces. And that's all I have at this point. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll open to the public. Is there anyone who would like to ask this witness a question? This is not a time to make a statement, and we're dealing with his testimony as presented.
Alex Strauss, 285 Hazlitt Way. Can I ask the engineer, now you just mentioned trees. Can I ask, because the environmental report says that 88 trees on site are proposed for removal, and you're going to replace with about 238, is that correct?
I don't have those exact numbers in front of me. I believe I testified the previous application, but if it's in the report, I would say it probably is.
Do you know what the circumference of those present 88 trees is?
Yeah, there's a chart on our plan because that's part of the township's tree replacement. So we have to do some in kind, and then for the larger trees, 2 for 1, 3 for 1. So we did size all those trees.
Right. And of the 238 replacement, how many is it estimated won't make it the first year, you know?
So it's required not only in this township, but every township that you bond for those plantings just for that case. So there's a separate bond for the site work and one for the landscape work. And I've worked with staff a long time, and they always make sure that's bonded to make sure those, if they die, they get replaced. So the township holds that bond.
Township's going to come back and take a survey of what trees are and the health of each tree, et cetera.
I just know that, I don't know their procedure exactly, but if trees die, you have to replace them, and there's a monetary, holding on that.
Right. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yes, good evening. I'm from Quailbrook 2. Question.
Wait, so you got to start with your name.
Tom Nisgo to Quailbrook 2.
And your address.
30 Canterbury Circle.
Very good.
Over there. Okay, so my question is, you're always referring to Ramadan, but I do not know of the Islamic faith how many holy days they have altogether. Plus, tomorrow is their Sabbath, so is that going to will the Sabbath also be counted as like a holy day?
That was a discussion that I instituted before his testimony. You're supposed to be asking questions dealing with his engineering testimony.
Okay, so regarding the expansion of buildings, if the building is built and occupied, is there any chance that the building will be expanded? You'll be adding additional buildings on that site?
I don't think he's the one to ask.
Why is that just a question? Asking me to phrase in the question.
Just answer the question.
Just answer the question, please.
Yep. Not without coming back to this board. Nothing can happen other than what's on this plan without coming back to this board.
Another question is, are you going to allow the loudspeakers 5 times a day?
That's not part of his testimony.
Sir, there's a statement of proposed use submitted with the application. Look on the website, and your questions will be answered. It's very specific about what they're going to do and not do. And I'll give you a hint, no loudspeakers.
There's no outdoor sound
No loudspeakers at
systems.
all. Okay, so I can take your word for it. It's on a website, you said, all that stuff.
It's
You
in our
can take my
application.
word for it, too.
Well, okay, take your word. Well, we're all, so I do not, I kind of don't trust human beings when it comes to this stuff, because what seems right now, but anyway, okay. So I don't think I have anything else. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to ask a question? Again, please start with your name and address.
Yeah, I'll do that. Rishi Bhattacharjee, 15 Hasbrook Drive, Franklin Park. And me and my wife are here. I have a quick question. It says 19-something thousand, right? Square foot, the whole property? The plinth area or the carpet area?
Not the property, the building footprint. The property is almost 16 acres.
Okay. So even if I just round it off to 20,000, even if I take 30% away for bathrooms, kitchens, and pantry, and so on and so forth, for 150 people, it is 93 square feet per person. Why do you need 93 square feet per person in a prayer session?
Mr. Ardman is not going to answer that question because it's way beyond his scope of his testimony.
That was my question. Whoever wants to answer, I'm good with.
So let me remind the public again. So again, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. It's very much like a court. And they presented an exhibit. Right now, Mr. Ardman presented an exhibit and a testimony speaking to that exhibit. Just like in a court session, it might be one expert who presents certain testimony, and the attorney gets to cross-examine, and then the other, and then you move on to the next expert. This is exactly the process here. So this is why the chairman keeps saying, ask questions about Mr. Ardman's testimony that he just presented. So the one thing that is a little bit different about this, as opposed to a court, is that the public gets to participate and kind of ask and cross-examine Mr. Ardman on the testimony he just provided. So what you're asking about is not what he just discussed.
So the only questions I can ask are on the parking spots. Because that's basically what you talked about.
Right now, that's what Mr. Ardman's presenting. They are going to be presenting the architect, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Schwartz?
The architect's going to testify briefly, yes.
So you might, your question might be better directed to him.
Okay, I'll come back. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deva Villuri. I'm from 72 Vermont Avenue, Franklin Park. My question is around, I believe there is a township code that says ordinance 112-37. Accordingly, if I read it right, it says minimum of 15 square foot of worship area is required. So what that means is for around 8,000 square foot, we need about 532 required spaces. Is it true?
That is true.
Then why are we only applying for 157?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if these members of the public were here for the previous two hearings. These are questions that were already answered, but also our planner will testify as to the statutory basis for the variances.
No,
but Mr. Ardman is not the one to answer it based upon his limited testimony that we're banking 30 spaces tonight.
I thought I'm obligated to know as a public. I live on that street. I'm obligated to know, like, this variance is not 10%, 20%. This is like 3 times the variance, which is like way overboard. So somebody should answer this.
Perhaps to move along, Mr. Ardman can answer the question in 25 words or less.
Sure. So you're right. That's the ordinance standard. Again, we don't want to dwell on the prior application, but there were similar variances granted, and to be honest, for many houses of worship, there's a kind of a peculiar thing in the ordinance. Since there are not seats, it's based on the square footage, and it also does not factor in the number of people per car. So when you have seats in a house of worship, as a church, as a pew, something like that, then that factor of 3 per per person applies, which doesn't come into the math here. That's a kind of long-winded way of saying we're going to have 150 people max at any one of the services per day, and based on that number, this is an appropriate number of parking. We don't want to pave this whole site with hundreds of parking spaces when we all know that that's not needed. For any house of worship that I've ever belonged to, Jewish temples, we know the days there are going to be people there, and there's a handful, and it's similar to this. You get 30, 50 people on a Friday night. A couple of times a year, you get 60 or 100, and those couple of big holidays, you get 200, but that's it.
Thank you. I'm not satisfied. 60 to 100, when you said 60 to 100 is a 50%, 100% difference. So the range 60, I would take 60 to 65 as a reasonable. When you say 60 to 100, that's big deal. But this place of worship is different because there is a specific D&R Canal region, 170 from 1702 era cultural landscape.
Mr. Chairman, we're well beyond, we're having testimony now, and it's well beyond the scope of...
No, this is very related to, sir, because this is Scenic Corridor District Overlay Ordinance 112-201 requires 1,000 feet on either side designated as a scenic roadway.
This wasn't...
Sir, you
part of
have to
this
ask questions that relate to his testimony. Questions that relate to his testimony, not make statements.
This is directly related to the public space uses. I'm not asking about...
But it's outside the scope of what he testified to.
Sir,
We've
you'll
been
get
saying that all night.
You know, as Mark, as everyone else is trying to explain, you can ask him questions related to what he spoke about or what he testified to. You may have a very valid question. It doesn't take away your right or authority to ask that question. It's just not the right time right now. You will have that time. If nowhere else, before everything ends, it is a general free-for-all. You could bring any ordinance, anything that you want to talk about.
Okay, I'll table this for now, but I do have some other questions. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just speak briefly about the scenic corridor. I mean, I think this board is well aware of that fact, and that the existence, the fact that this property is on a scenic corridor, the requirements of that ordinance was a big part of the original approval, and for the prior application. And as the applicant testified in this hearing, at one of the two prior hearings, this layout is basically entirely consistent with the board's previous approval, that you imposed a whole number of conditions addressing the requirements of the scenic corridor. So, and the reason I say that, again, is I think some members of the public they're coming at this thinking that just because Mr. Ardman is not addressing that right now doesn't mean it hasn't been addressed at the hearings on this application and the year that was spent on the application that preceded it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jyoti Maneni. I'm from 5 Arrowhead Lane. I apologize if this question has been asked and answered already. The capacity is 50, but the parking spots are 97, so that's 2 spots per person. I was just wondering why there is a need for 97 plus 60 bank.
So the 50 on a kind of a daily, we don't want a parking problem on the high holidays either. The high holiday is 150, that was the testimony. So that's the number we're basing the parking off of.
So this is built for 150, and that can happen any day, or only weekends, or only on holidays?
Only on special events.
Only special events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Clark.
You need to get closer.
Bring the microphone down.
I'm sure.
Hold it down. There you go.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Clark. I'm from 87 Marcy Street. I don't know if this is an actual question in relation to what you were thinking. I had two questions, though. One would be, I'm looking at the parking lot area, and I was just wondering if at some point it might be better that it was kind of looped so that vehicles could go in a loop of dropping off and just moving them along faster in and out, as far as like during their busier time.
So I can hit that real quick. So around here, even though I didn't testify today, coming through this parking area at the bottom by the building, there is a loop, and there's actually a porte cochere for a drop-off under the building to keep moving into either one of these parking lots. So
Okay.
that's provided just as you thought would be good to have.
Yes, okay, that's because I can't see that from the
Yeah.
plan.
Mhm.
I appreciate that. And also, I just wanted to know, what will be, we see the parking and for everything, but what about the actual road accommodation? Is it going to be, I know I don't drive there all the time, but I know whenever I drive into that area, it can get quite congested. And I was like wondering, will there be a light to let in and out?
We have a
during
traffic
busy
engineer. We have a
times?
traffic engineer who talked to all that.
Okay.
But there definitely won't be a light. The county wouldn't approve one, but he'll talk to the traffic movements.
Okay. So like if I go there and it's Ramadan and there's 100 cars coming out, I'm stuck sitting there waiting?
Yes, ma'am. Just like everybody else.
And no one has thought of maybe a little bit something better for that?
We're going to have a whole witness. We're going to have a witness. The traffic engineer's going to talk about all that coming up.
Okay, that's what I thought he was.
No, he's an engineer.
Yeah.
That's different.
Okay, I apologize.
No problem.
That's what I thought
Yep.
you could answer. All right, thank you.
Okay, then we'll close to the public and we'll take the next witness.
Yogesh Mistry. Thank you, Mr. Arman.
I'll just get you fired up. There you go.
Yogesh, you're still under oath?
Yes, I am.
Why don't you for the record, give your name and your profession?
Yogesh Mistry, licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, and I've testified here many times.
Didn't we qualified him, didn't we?
We did. He testified at length. All right, Mr. Mistry, the reason you're back here is because you have put an exhibit up that shows a different layout of prayer rugs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So tell us what happened that prompted you to do this?
Yeah, I think there was a long discussion at the last hearing regarding the number of people indicated on our previous layout, and I guess we took the conservative route when showing the layout that, we wanted to show that we were sort of not exceeding the 458 capacity that this, the septic requirements limit you to. So that was the basis of the original design or the exhibit, and they were essentially 3 by 3 squares that were placed within this open prayer space, within a few rows and kind of columns, and that was the limit. And we thought we were being conservative. I think, I guess you could always look at it the other way, where if we showed this one first, you might have said, well, what if you maxed it out? So I guess we're here today to kind of show the sort of a more realistic approach of how they use the space. This was the layout I'm referring to is an exhibit called A201 Alt Rug Layout. It's dated March 31st, 2026. And it's showing the prayer spaces highlighted with kind of red boxes, and each red box is a 3-foot by 6-foot rug, or kind of a mat. And that's an area of, this is again with discussions with the applicant of how they use the space, and how people would kind of be scattered throughout the prayer area. And obviously, if you go there, it's not going to be so systematic. Not everybody's putting their rug exactly where it's shown, but we thought this was a fair representation of how sort of a comfortable layout of rugs and like humans sitting in a sort of prostrated position on the floor. So there's 150 rugs shown. There's kind of broken up into two halls. The left hall, the larger one is the men's, and the smaller one is the women's. There's 90 in the men's and the 60 in the women's. And we thought that was a fair representation. There's aisleways kind of around the perimeter and down the middle, between 5 to 6 feet, and then the spaces in between, kind of vertically, was 30 inches, and the other direction was 1 foot between the rugs. So, I think the testimony last time was that the 3x3 boxes we had shown, nobody sits like that. No, you're not sort of on top of each other. It's not a sort of a practical way to pray, and this is more representative of how they actually use the space. So again, this is kind of maxing this out, and on a daily basis, people are going to come in. If there's only 50 people here, then they're going to kind of take their own space and kind of they want to pray in sort of some peace. They don't want to pray when somebody's right on top of them, 2 inches away. So this is kind of a more practical representation of that.
Yogesh, I want to be really clear on this. Your initial layout showing 458 prayer rugs, was that based purely on the septic limitation per 24 hours as opposed to anything that the client told you about how many people would be praying at one time?
Yes, I mean, we were really just trying to show that we were within the limit of that 458.
Right.
And those weren't rugs. They were just kind of sort of a 3x3 designation of what a human would take up sitting down.
Okay. And the 150 you're showing now is consistent with the highest number that the client has said in his statement of proposed use would be praying at any one time?
Yes.
And have you also gained knowledge from the client that after the formal prayer meeting finishes, that worshipers go into corners and have private prayers by themselves or in small groups?
That's my understanding of how the applicant represented their sort of procedures on their prayers.
All right, so that wouldn't necessarily show where the prayer rugs are, but rather another way of explaining why they need this worship space.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Any board questions?
I do, if I may. And I ask this out of respect. Does every worshiper need a prayer mat when they're in service?
I'm not sure if I could answer that question. I don't know I don't want to say the wrong answer there.
In other words, do they pray without using the prayer mat?
Sure, could they? So if
I have not been given such information that they typically would use a prayer mat.
Okay, so is there a possibility that there could be 150 prayer mats, but then also some celebrants there that would not be using a prayer mat?
Are you getting to a point where there could be more than 150 people here at a time?
That wasn't my question. I was asking you whether you can. Would
they be? So could you ask that question again? I don't know if Mr. Mystery. I didn't understand, so I don't know if he does.
I'm not super familiar with the Islamic faith. So can someone pray in a mosque without using a prayer mat?
There is a carpet there with the printed tapestry there, and then carpet they pray. They don't have to bring their all the time. Okay.
Did you, Yogesh, did you hear what he said?
Yeah, he basically said that they have carpets there. You don't bring your own, and there's closets up along the kind of the top portion of the prayer hall where they have the mats.
I didn't ask about closets. I asked if people could go to the mosque and pray without having one of these 150 prayer carpets.
I don't know.
I think what Yogesh just said was that there are prayer mats in the closets if you don't bring one, but there's also carpeting that they could kneel on.
So technically the answer is yes.
Yeah, if you're asking whether there's a requirement that prayer should be on a mat, I don't think so.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. I get it. I'm sorry, I wasn't understanding where your question was going.
Maybe I could have asked that a little bit clearer if I had some more understanding, but that's why I tried to ask for clarity.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a question on the dimension. You're using a 3 foot by 6 foot rug?
Yes.
So where did that figure come from?
That was just discussions with the applicant on, how much space they would need for a typical rug.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any others? Anything?
Good evening, Mr. Mystery. You said the 3 by 6 dimension came from a discussion with the applicant. Are you aware the applicant testified at the first hearing that the mats were 3 by 3 feet?
I don't recall that, no.
Well, I'll state for the record that's in the minutes. So which is it? Is it 3 by 3 or 3 by 6? Because there's a big difference.
If it's a 3 by 3 rug, it would just be enough for sitting on. It wouldn't be enough to kind of lie down and pray.
Now, you described this exhibit as showing a realistic layout, meaning if you went into, let's say, another of this applicant's centres, are you likely to see a layout similar to this, with 3 by 6 mats spaced out by a foot?
I'm going to object to that. I don't know how Mr. Mystery could say what is in a different mosque of anybody's, let alone this applicant's.
Well, he's providing testimony as to the applicant's use. I think it's a fair question. And he described it as a realistic depiction of how this space is being used.
When I said realistic, I meant in terms of human dimensions and what people need in terms of space to, lie down and pray. That's what the realistic dimension. I've never been to, a mosque to say that this is how it would look,
Right.
if I walked into a mosque.
The idea was to take 150 and fit it perfectly into this space. Or is it just a coincidence that it fits perfectly into that space?
No, you could fit more, you could fit less. I could have spaced it out even more if I wanted to, but I just wanted to show what was, I think, a fair. I mean, you could question the dimensions if you want, but I think that the rug sizes and the clearances and things kind of speak for themselves, and the fact that it worked out to 150 is irrelevant, I think. But.
It's irrelevant? Or wasn't that the most relevant point, that you're expecting no more than 150? Therefore, you really couldn't have more than this?
No, I think 150, I think the question that came up last time was, why would you have such a big prayer hall if you only had 150 people? Now I'm showing that this is how they're really using it, so.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Mystery, you designed the space for the prior application, the Dada Bhagwan application, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And the worship area for that space was about 1,000 square feet less, if I have my notes correct here. Does that ring a bell?
That's probably correct, yeah.
Is it fair to say you could probably fit 150 mats into that space, that prior space?
I don't remember exactly how that laid out. And,
I mean, if you just take the dimensions.
I can't say for sure whether it would fit or not. I don't know. We didn't do a study on that.
Okay, well, I would submit to this board that you could quite comfortably fit 150 mats of this dimension
Objection,
into
Mr.
the
Chairman.
prior space, which raises the question: why would this applicant increase the worship area?
Mr.
by
Chairman,
over
are we
1,000
in
square
summation
feet?
now?
His testimony didn't get into the philosophy about why it's bigger or not bigger. He presented what he had to present in order to fit in the facility that's proposed. And I don't think he was testifying to that anyway.
Okay, I raised the question, and I think it's an important one, and I will come back to it. What would happen if there were more than 150 worshippers with mats that size? Would you just bunch them up?
I mean, I don't think we have more than 150 worshipers.
But let's say
because
it's possible that you could if the congregation grows, correct?
I mean, anything is possible, but that's not what the applicant has testified to. In fact, they have, significantly less than this most of the time.
And so the 150 mats, that would be for special events, which could occur 5 times a day. Is that right?
Objection, Mr. Chairman. This witness is not qualified to answer that.
Not his testimony.
Okay. And so would you be prepared to limit the occupancy to 150 mats?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed use is Exhibit A1, and Mr. Mystery is not in a position to vary that.
Who is in a position to do that?
Mr. Chairman, A1 speaks for itself. We've committed to what's on A1.
You said it. I don't know what else I can add to.
Well, I think that's a question that the applicant needs to answer, and you're not recalling the applicant, but providing the applicant's testimony instead for the board. So I'm still unclear on whether the mat size is 3 by 3 or 3 by 6, because there seems to be a big difference between what the applicant actually testified to at the first hearing with respect to 3 by 3 size mats, which would mean that you could fit double the number virtually into that space.
Ms. Bailey, may I just interject, because I think I share a little bit of your concern. And I was hesitant to speak to it because it's, a Google search. I assume it's correct. I looked up what is the typical size of a Muslim prayer rug, and it said it was, I think it was 2.5 by 4.5. It was 2 to 4 feet by up to 2.5 by 4.5. So that's what Google's telling me. Google's suggesting it's more than 3 by 3. But it's also suggesting it's smaller than 3 by 6. So, I'm wondering if, and Mr. Mystery is going on what he's been told by his client. And so I think his testimony is that he can't verify that that's the right size. That's what he was told that they need. I'm wondering if we need to have somebody under oath testify to what is the actual size of a Muslim prayer rug, because I think this exhibit's very important. It speaks to the intensity of the use. For this religion, how many people can they reasonably fit in this space with the space demands, the space requirements of their prayer rugs? And it also speaks to the parking variance. The one gentleman before was mentioning why would the board grant a variance? Well, the ordinance says it's 1 space for every 15 square feet. Well, that might be, at the end of the day, the board may decide that is too high, because if they're laying out rugs, it's going to be, the people are taking up more space than 15 square feet. But what is the right number? I'm not sure if I'm, based on, what I understand based on Google, 3 by 6 is not the standard size of a prayer rug. I'm not testifying to that. Somebody should.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that. Okay, this is, with due respect, Mr. Healy, I've said this so many times. I doubt there is some rule on how large a prayer mat is. I do know that if you put prayer mats, squeeze them next to each other, you could get more people into this space than the applicant is promising they will not exceed. Our testimony and our record is clear as to how many people are going to be in this worship area at one time. And whether you can squeeze in 300 prayer mats or under only 100 prayer mats, the applicant is saying they're going to have 50, 60 people there at a time. And on the high holidays, they may have up to 150, and they will get a special use permit. And so, with due respect again, Mr. Healy, the exact size of a prayer mat is secondary to how many people we're actually going to have on this space. Because if we're 2 by 4 or 4 by 4 or 3 by 3, you put them next to each other, you could probably squeeze 200-300 people in here. But we're saying we're not going to do that, because when we worship, we have the formal worship service, and then people go into different areas and have private prayers, and they need the space for that purpose.
So, I apologize. I Ms. Bailey, you were asking.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. No, you asked the question, I think, better than I could. And notwithstanding that Mr. Schwartz has just provided fact testimony that really should be coming from the applicant and the board should disregard it. Again, I'm not sure we'd even be here if you weren't seeking an over 80% variance from the required parking. And that's triggered by an over 1,000 square foot increase in the worship area. If you're proposing that fewer attendees are going to be attending the worship area, why does it need to be larger? That's the question that everybody is asking and has really not been explained. That's all I have for now.
Okay, we will now open again to the public. Is there anyone who would like to ask the architect questions based on the testimony that you just heard?
Shampa Bhattacharjee, 15 Hasbrook Drive. And I'll ask the question my husband was asking before. So the building size is approximately 20,000 square foot. We are seeing usage here of 7,981, which is less, less than half of what the building size actually is. As they say, if you build it, they will come. Is that the plan? Are they planning to scale up? Why do we need a 20K building? Why can't it be smaller if it is only going to accommodate 150 people max on certain days?
I don't know if that's his question.
No, that's not Mr. Mystery's
But we talked about the size of the building, the number of people, and that's what I'm asking. Why do we have a building size that is more than double of what is required? What's the ROI?
I doubt that it was his initial decision on the size of the building. What we're asking now is for you to ask questions based on what you heard him say over the last 20 minutes. The testimony mainly concerning the mats.
Yeah, I understand. The mats, which is size fitted, because obviously what we are learning, it may not be as large as needed, but again, he's not the right person to answer it because the applicant is not here who's supposed to answer it. But my question is, again, the entire building size, which is what will dictate, how many parking spaces you will have eventually and how many people are going to show up.
Okay, Mr.
Why do we have something that is more than double of what has been shown here, projected here?
Mr. Chairman, if I can refer the questioner to page 12 in the minutes, where Mr. Razi testified that they have mosques in Piscataway and Edison as well. How they come up with the number 60 as the maximum number. Mr. Razi indicated they looked at the people in the area, the families and collective numbers. He said that they have other mosques in the area that they were generating the same numbers there. Mr. Razi indicated that the numbers were smaller at that time in Somerset than they were in Piscataway and Edison, and so his testimony was explained why they need this space for 50 or 60 people at a time. So look in the minutes on the board's website, and you'll see on page 12 an explanation from the applicant as to why they want this space.
I think miscommunicating or not being able to explain to you what I'm asking. I understand, where they came up with the number 60 and 150 on special days. What I'm asking is the requirement in size for a congregation that is only 60, as projected here, is about 8,000 square feet. Why do we have a building that is going to be more than double that size?
Okay.
Is that for purpose of scaling up eventually?
That's
my
just not
question.
his testimony.
Mr. Chairman, but again, I think I can answer that question because I think it's shown on this exhibit. If I understand what she's saying, the worship area is that 7,981 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
The parking requirement is based on the size of the worship area.
Mm-hmm.
That generates the parking demand. The rest of the building, there's storage closets, hallways, rug closets, bathrooms, things like that's the additional square footage.
That's
a hallway, the reception area, bathrooms don't generate a parking demand. The parking demand is generated by the size of the worship area. So that if I think I'm answering the question, the worship area is about 8,000 square feet. The remainder is that other space.
So about double that space is needed for everything else, and it is not for scaling up.
Well, I can't answer that. I'm just explaining the difference
I
in square
understand what you're
footage.
saying.
The applicant would have to answer that.
I'm asking.
Well, we can't grow the prayer hall any. I mean, this is the.
You are getting to my question now. Perfect. Yes.
The other support spaces, like Mark said, are they're part of the support spaces, but the prayer hall itself is a fixed size. We can't increase that unless we came back in front of this board.
So you cannot increase the prayer hall?
No.
That was my question.
If they increase if they went and increased the prayer hall, even within the existing footprint, that would trigger a larger parking requirement. They'd have to come back to this board.
Yeah.
That was my question.
I'm sorry,
Thank
I
you.
misunderstood your question. I guess I totally missed it. I'm sorry.
That's no problems.
And Mark, I just wanted.
Any other people wish to ask?
I just wanted Mark. Yes, I just wanted Mark to clarify. And the parking in this case, because they're not seats, is based on square footage. So regardless of how many rugs are in there, the parking technically is based on the square footage.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So what the parking, our ordinance requirement, how our ordinance requires that we measure the required parking spaces in an open worship area is one space for every 15 square feet. So they need that variance. What then the applicant needs to do then is prove, based on the nature of their use, and I think part of that is this exhibit, that they have sufficient parking because of the details of their use and their operation.
Okay, thank you.
And also, since they're looking for the parking variance based on these numbers that you presented, they're right now agreeing, even though we didn't condition it yet, that there really never can be more than 150 people in that worship hall at one time, ever. Because then they would need more parking. All their parking is based on 150.
I'm sure Mr. Schwartz would say that's what they're presenting to the board.
I'm just.
The 150.
Did I say that before?
A few times.
I'm just confirming that we're all on the same page.
That's their testimony.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Again, my name is Jyoti, and I'm from 5 Arrowhead Lane. I don't think my question is related to your testimony. It is just a clarification. We are talking about just the worship area, which is supposed to be enough for 150 people. Last time, we also talked about the classrooms in the back. So I just wanted to know if the building occupancy 50 is just 50 worshipers, or is it worshipers plus the students in the classroom?
The minutes say that, plus the statement of proposed use, state that there will not be classes. There's no school there. The testimony was that the imam who will be living there, or a guest imam, may have small prayer meetings or small teaching meetings, but there's no school, there's no class, there's no classes.
Then something must have changed, because last time we were here, when we discussed the plan, it was clearly mentioned that the last 2 rooms over there were classrooms for Sunday school or something like that.
No, there's not going to be any school.
So, okay. Then I must have misunderstood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
If I could just clarify, on the floor plan it says classroom.
No, I think that was my testimony originally. It was my misunderstanding that they're not being used as classrooms.
Okay, but the exhibit that you presented did say classroom stuff this evening.
The plan still says classroom, correct. We could rename that in a different manner, but.
Well, I just want to be clear based on her question that we weren't depicting school versus classroom, that her intent was it was a classroom.
Understood,
Okay.
yeah. We could clarify.
Quick question for Mark, one moment. Classrooms don't generate parking?
No, I would consider, even if it was if it was a completely separate use, that might. We do have situations where there's a house of worship, and on the same campus, there's also a full school. Well, sure, that would be a separate parking requirement. If it was your typical house of worship that, happened to have some classrooms for Sunday school, that I would not count that as, I would say the worship area is still generating the parking requirement.
Okay.
That the classrooms are accessory to that use.
I just received a clarification from my client. They are discussion rooms. They're not classrooms. There's no Sunday school. They are discussion rooms with the imam.
So the use in those rooms would probably be simultaneously made up of some of the people that are there for the worship.
Correct. Small group.
And that means that it wouldn't bring additional people at the same time.
That's right.
I mean, go ahead.
Wait. I want to make sure that any exhibits that are attached now call those rooms discussion rooms rather than classrooms.
We can change that.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, my name is Deva Villuri from 72 Vermont Avenue. If I may ask the questions to the architect, right?
Yes.
I don't want to disturb the whole. Okay. So, can you please enlighten me, sir? Like according to the township code, is there an aisle requirement between each rug? In the rows and also in the column, both?
There's no specific requirement from a code perspective now. There needs to be aisleways for just general egress around the,
Because that layout, reasonable layout, if the inside area is 7,900, according to my math, just laying out reasonably would take about 4,000 square foot, just the rugs alone. And if you take into building codes and fire code rules, various rules I can cite here, it's going to violate all the rules. Just 150 prayer rugs, 6 by 3, each 18 square foot, with the reasonable spacing is going to take more than 60% of the available space.
Are you saying we need to decrease the number of rugs there?
I'm not saying. I'm arguing how is it engineeringly arrived at, and it's a potential fire hazard.
No. This would meet the building codes if that's your question. I mean, we wouldn't get this approved unless it met the building codes.
No, if I see visually, right, each prayer rug is next to each other. They are like touching each other. That's not how you reasonably place in any public setting. There should be a reasonable aisle space, column-wise and row-wise, and that goes over 60 to 65% of the available floor space. How do we reconcile that? I want the board to take all this into account, seriously, because once some accident happens, I'm going to come back to this board with every minute in hand, because these are serious community issues.
Well, the building department wouldn't approve this.
Reviewed by fire and everybody that's appropriate.
The occupancy and the egress and all of that is handled at the time of building permit. And there's very specific requirements. This would be an assembly use and subject to whatever the requirements are for an assembly use. It wouldn't get approved and built.
But I see it's quite reasonable to pose a question. They are lying next to each other like packed sardines in a box. It's not reasonable for public use. Moreover, it's a sacred place. I am not against. I'm against a church, a temple, and a mosque, a sports facility, a recreation facility, period. I'm against everything because that's that road has a historical significance to the township. America has two things: abundance of land, abundance of transportation. There are plenty of free space available everywhere. Why are we packing it like sardines in the middle of a scenic roadway? Look at how the occupants are going to be sitting. If there's single fire, I'm going to come to the board with a specific why there is proper due diligence and precautions are not taken into account.
Mr. Chairman, in just the interest of moving this along, there's no question for this witness.
No, I haven't received an answer for that layout.
Do you have a question?
Yes, that the layout seems unreasonable. It's more like a warehouse than a public place of worship.
Sir, respectfully, what do you base that on?
respectfully see the visual, sir. They are next to, there is not even 1 foot difference between each rug. And if there's an emergency, according to the fire code and the IBC rules, there should be a reasonable aisle space between column-wise and the row-wise. I don't think the engineer accounted for all that.
It will meet building code. I mean, it's no different than all these seats that are next to each other, and there's an aisleway. I mean, there's no space between this seat and the next seat, so.
There's a foot of
Yeah, well,
difference.
we have that. We have 30 inches between
Yeah.
each rug.
I don't see that, sir. If I
Yeah,
take 30
well.
inches, it's about 7,000 square foot.
No. It's indicated right here. This is drawn to scale. There's 30 inches between, and there's 1 foot on the other direction.
No,
So
I don't see 30 inches anywhere
it
marked.
says right here, 2'6". This clear. I mean, it's.
Do the math, and it's over 60% of usage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Alex Strauss again. Mr. Mystery Architect, so you were talking about, everyone's asking about the size of the building. So in your expertise as an architect, you could conceivably shrink the building, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible to do.
Right, and you could work with other people like Mr. Ardman, the engineer, et cetera, to have things like a Ramadan tent. There's a Wikipedia entry just for that. On special events, because we keep saying, well, we're not going to need all the space, you could have a tent that's heated, of course, Ramadan in the winter, right? Is that conceivable?
Well, I'm not sure if the applicant wants to spend all this money and
That's
then have a
not quite
tent
his
to-
testimony either.
Mr. Schwartz just mentioned the imam. Does the imam own 50 cars, Mr. Schwartz?
You're supposed to be questioning the architect on his testimony.
Okay, just curious about the parking and everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Then we'll close to the public. Move it along then.
Can I make a comment? I guess the whole testimony was so focused and just marked for, the size of the rug. I think, it really needs to go by what the occupancy is because, just for general knowledge, maybe a rug can be 5 feet by 10 feet worth $20,000 and hand woven with the best Persian rug, or it can be you just spray on your jacket. The size of the rug is really not relevant at all. So I just wanted people to understand that it's based on how many people we expect, which is sort of unrelated to the size of the rug. So all this attention is sort of neither here nor there on the exact size of the rug. You could find them in any size, but it's not a standard. It's not even required, as he asked.
Good, thanks for that insight.
Mr. Hack, we have submitted 2 new plans today. Do we need to mark them into evidence, or is that just because they've been submitted that they're part of the record?
They're part of the record
Okay.
if they're part of your submission, so we
All
don't
right.
have to mark it separately.
Okay, I tend to forget about these things in court, and, I just want to be sure. All right, I'd like to call Mr. Doug Poliniak, who is our traffic engineer.
Mr. Pliniak,
Yes.
can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you just repeat your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Sure. It's Douglas Poliniak, P as in Peter, Olyniak.
Thank you.
Mr. Poliniak, what is your profession?
Yes, I'm a licensed engineer of the state of New Jersey with my specialty in traffic engineering.
Are you employed by the firm of Dolan and Dean?
I am.
Can you provide your qualifications and experience in your profession?
Sure. I have a bachelor's of science in civil engineering from Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I graduated with that degree in 1998. Since that time, I've been working in the field of traffic engineering. Like I said, I've been licensed for approximately 22 years within the state of New Jersey. My license is current and up to date. I've testified as an expert witness in the field of traffic before approximately 120 municipal
That
boards.
sounds good enough to move on.
Thank you.
Have you testified in front of this board?
I have. I think it's been possibly well over 5 years, but I've been here on a number of occasions.
Mr. Pliniak, are you familiar with the application and also familiar with the plans that have submitted and the resolution of approval for the previous application affecting his property?
Yes.
What else what have you done in connection with preparation for this testimony?
Sure. Yeah, to review the peak hour traffic associated with this application, Dolan and Dean, our office, prepared a traffic impact study that was dated August 11th of 2025.
Wait, right here. That's very interesting. Did someone go out and count cars?
Yes, we did.
At the site?
Correct.
Oh, good.
Well, along South Middlebush Road,
Okay.
as the site is currently, just a single-family home with a gravel driveway.
Why don't you explain what your office did?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to get into it. I mean, just as by way of background, as you heard from just a little bit of testimony, because it sets up the framework of our traffic report, typical weekday operations for the center will include prayer sessions at sunrise, sunset, once during the midday, and 2 times during the evening. And as we've discussed in great detail, we're looking at up to 60 attendees for your standard daily session 5 times a day. So initially, to project site traffic that we anticipate attending these sessions, we looked at those attendance numbers as well as typical parking requirements, as Mr. Ardman stated earlier, of about 1 vehicle per 3 attendees. So with 60 attendees and 3 people per vehicle, you're looking at 20 vehicles entering and 20 vehicles exiting during those prayer sessions.
Where do you get that formula?
Yeah, that's a standard parking requirement for houses of worship, three worshipers, attendees, parishioners per vehicle.
And the number of parishioners that are thought to attend this church once it's built, where did that come from?
That was the 60 members. And
Yeah.
Yeah, that was provided by the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, so initially we looked at 20 vehicles entering and 20 vehicles exiting. However, in order to perform a more conservative analysis, when we reviewed the driveway operations, we looked at 2 people per vehicle, which would then create a trip generation of 30 entering and 30 exiting. So we did a little bit of a conservative analysis, assuming there'd be fewer people per vehicle. That equals 60 turning movements over the course of an hour, which is about 1 every minute, either be entering or exiting, which is not a very high number. And it's also likely that the volumes could possibly be even lower, as families tend to have more than 3 people in a car, and small groups could carpool and potentially fit more than 3 people in a car. So we felt that the 30 entering and 30 exiting was conservative with respect to analysis of the potential driveway operations. I'd like to add that the Institute of Transportation Engineers, as well as NJDOT, consider 100 hourly trips that are new as a significant level of traffic. Excuse me. That could require an analysis, as it may have off-track impacts. In this case, the site would generate, during its standard day, below that number, about 60% of that number, demonstrating that it will not have, over the course of your standard day, substantial impacts off track.
Okay, wait a minute. A couple of things.
Yes.
Your mouth is too far away from the microphone.
I thought I was projecting, but
well,
sorry about that.
These are not really that great at projecting, so it's important. Number 2, I would like to go back over what you just said, because it came at me a little fast, and I'm sure the other people here felt the same way. So now, you in the beginning, the first thing you did is you identified when the services are going to take place, and you said one was at dawn.
Correct.
Jeez, dawn, and then the next one was at noon.
Well, I didn't list them in chronological order, but there's one at sunrise, there's 2 during the midday, then one at sunset, 2 during the evening, and then 1 at sunset.
Oh, that's, well, and that would almost mean that, I'm a little confused. The thought of sunset being before the evening doesn't, I don't really think that it works that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe just to clarify.
Here's why I'm asking this. I want to understand whether there's overlap between people coming in and people going out.
No, great question. The timeframes estimates that we've been provided for the morning session are about 6 a.m. Obviously, it's dependent on sunrise. The midday session, 1 p.m. The evening sessions, 5 and 7, and then the late session, which could be the sunset session, depending on if it's summer or not, somewhere up around 9 o'clock. So there's no prayer session that falls within 2 hours of each other.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. Well, maybe because you have the morning one, the dawn one, then you have a midday one. I'm still kind of struggling with what that is. That like noon?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Okay, thanks. And then there's what? 5
p.m.
5 p.m.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
And then that sunset session that was in the evening.
Okay.
9 o'clock.
So then they're basically 2 hours apart.
Between start times, correct.
Right. And how long does it take for the group to clear the parking lot and to leave? Do you come up with some idea of that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that it's about a half an hour to congregate and get there.
Prayer session's a half an hour?
Also true, but I mean, to get there, you have some people that arrive a little bit early, some people that are late stragglers, so about a half an hour. Then the prayer session is approximately a half hour as well.
Okay.
And then that exiting process is around a half an hour also.
Okay, good. That was the stuff that was going too fast.
Yeah, so sorry. So you're not going to have a influx of people coming in while people are leaving the prior session.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's important.
So, pardon me, and I have a question, and if you answered, my apologies, and if I missed it. But did you, in your study, counted the traffic and cars according to all of these sessions, or was it like at a particular time of the day just once?
No, I'll get into that. That was actually my next point of business. I was just discussing the trip generation that we anticipate seeing coming in and out of the site. And then what we were going to do is review how we analyze the operations of the driveway with that site traffic. And in order to do so, we counted traffic along South Middlebush Road using an automatic traffic recorder. And those are the tubes that lie across the road. And they count the northbound and southbound traffic on South Middlebush, and we had that out there for a week, essentially, a Monday through Friday, and that was able to provide us with a breakdown of hour-by-hour volumes, northbound and southbound, for those worship sessions.
When did you do these trip counting?
Those recorders were placed out there in October, Monday through Friday, October 7th through October 11th in 2024.
Okay, and not during any kind of bad weather or holiday or anything like that?
No, and and the reason why we do like a Monday through Friday is that we're able to take an average of every day. Every day of the week, traffic's not the same. There could be an accident upstream, downstream that causes, additional volumes for certain hours. So, we didn't study the absolute highest volumes we saw, and we didn't study the lowest volumes we saw. We tried to establish a typical standard day over the course of a week. What we found from those volumes, and it's not a surprise, that the busiest hour along South Middlebush Road is at 5 p.m. hour, obviously the evening commute.
Is that 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.?
Correct. So that becomes our critical hour with respect to when the roadway and the site is at its busiest, because generally we looked at each one of those prayer sessions as having the same trip generation volume, but it's the roadway volume that's going to create the critical hour. In that case, it's 5 p.m., which had essentially by far the most traffic over those prayer session hours. So what we did is then we projected a future condition with the site driveway in operation. And in order to create the future condition, we applied a 1% growth factor to the which is an NJDOT growth factor for Somerset County, to the volumes along South Middlebush Road.
See, you were doing great until you threw a bunch of initials at me there in the middle of that sentence. What did you say?
Yeah, the facility's not going to open, today based on our numbers. So what we try and do is take in background growth for just, other projects that may be in the area, development. So we apply a growth factor.
Okay.
In order to get that growth factor, we use data that's provided by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. They have data by county. So obviously for Somerset County, for this type of roadway, it was a 1% increase in traffic. So we applied that for 2 years to those volumes.
Okay.
Then we routed those 30 vehicles into and out of the site based on the standard day, following the traffic flow pattern that we found on South Middlebush Road. We put those on the roadway network at the driveway, and then we performed what is called a level of service analysis. It's likely that you've heard that before from other applications, but levels of service are rankings A through F based on delay of turning movements. A is an exceptional level of service, like a report card. Very minimal delay, and F is when a intersection or a turning movement is operating beyond its capacity. There's more vehicles than the capacity of the roadway can handle. So we used software, Synchro software, to analyze that driveway, and we found that during that critical peak hour with the 30 vehicles entering and 30 vehicles exiting, the exiting volumes during that critical 5 p.m. peak hour will operate at level of service D, which is an acceptable level of service, and actually pretty well for a lot of locations within New Jersey. And the inbound movements would operate at level of service A, essentially very low delay for movements coming into the site.
Well, exactly what does D mean?
Yeah, D is delay in seconds. In this case, it's about a 30-second delay per vehicle.
So then, does that mean that vehicles are stacking up behind one another? Well, not trying to get in, because you said even a left-hand turn, you're not having a delay problem. A left-hand turn at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, no. Left turns, you're only competing against the northbound flow of traffic on South Middlebush, and based on the volumes for that approach, it's a very low volume of entering vehicles, a maximum of about 18 we projected entering.
Yeah.
There's sufficient capacity within that turning movement to make it into the driveway without any substantial delay.
18 over what period of time?
That would be over the course of the people arriving at the...
That's the 1/2 hour arrival, right?
Correct.
And then, now this is really important. I'm anticipating some of your questions because
It's all right.
I want to understand too. The D level. Which turn is the D level?
The D level is the exiting movement coming out of the subject driveway. That's the left turn and right turn onto South Middlebush. So while there's that 30-second delay, it's not impacting South Middlebush itself. It's just people at the stop sign exiting the worship center onto the roadway.
So to that statement, I don't necessarily agree. Having used South Middlebush every single day, okay, any time that you come from any of the other merging roads, even 2 cars take more than a minute or 2 or 3 just to make a left or a right turn, depending upon the time of the day. Second, just to say that it is impacting someone only who's making the turn is not true, because the person who's traveling northbound or southbound on this road is also impacted with that number of traffic. And when you have 30 cars coming into that traffic every single day at the peakest hour on that road, I assure you that I don't believe this math holds. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then that's what the analysis shows. I've been out there on a number of occasions. I certainly haven't timed my ability to make turns onto South Middlebush from some of the side streets and driveways. But, what you experience sometimes is, there's a steady stream of traffic, and it makes it difficult to make a left turn, but there are northbound brakes, which allows someone to make a right turn. And then there's those instances where there's actually a gap in traffic where multiple vehicles can leave in a short period of time. So there may be a vehicle that takes 1 minute but then there's a vehicle that takes 2 seconds, so then you average and get that 30 seconds. So there's certainly a lot of traffic on South Middlebush with the ability to process this low level of volume.
Between 5 and 6:30, there's no gap in vehicles on that road. At least
I don't agree with that because I've observed it.
From Amwell to 27, that road, that portion segment is bumper to bumper. Okay, this is a practical example, at least I as user face. So
you may have done it more than I have, but in the number of times that I've been out there, I am on the road often for other meetings at this time. I fully understand that it's a busy roadway, and if someone is turning out of a site or a home or a side street, there are times when there's queuing that takes place. But when those movements aren't happening, there's a free flow of traffic that I've witnessed along South Middlebush.
Well, I have another question. At what point in time, or what traffic flow, let's assume this is approved, and now it becomes a chronic problem. What happens, at what level of traffic will we need a traffic light there then?
Yeah, well, South Middlebush Road is a Somerset County roadway. It's under their jurisdiction, so they would, the application is before them, and they haven't provided their review yet. However, they would be the ones that would need to review and approve any warrants for traffic signalization, and this facility would not reach those levels to generate. It's based on a peak hour volume, 4-hour volumes, even 8-hour volumes to meet a couple warrants, and the site, which is the minor approach, is not going to experience that level of traffic that would trigger those warrants. South Middlebush during its busiest times likely does, but similar to the other upstream and downstream intersections, they just don't meet the warrants for a signal, particularly a place like this where over the course of the times when there's not services, there's not going to be very much traffic at all.
How about consideration, I can't tell from the map that we got, but would there be any benefit to establishing a left turn lane coming out of the driveway so that the right turn wouldn't be held up?
I generally don't like that design because, and I've experienced this recently, I've been on the road a lot, when someone's trying to make a right turn, you can't see, from your blocks your sight lines. If I'm trying to make a right onto South Middlebush and someone's creeping, trying to make that left, I can't tell who's coming northbound. So as far as just like a safety precaution, I generally prefer a one-lane exit on an unsignalized intersection, just for viewpoint. I think it's a safer condition.
Mr. Chairman,
that's why I asked. How about the concept of a no left turn, period? Out, no left turn out.
Well, I do think that if people struggle or have a certain, wait to make that left turn, they'll eventually opt to just make the right turn and self-police itself. I think sometimes when we restrict left turns, it just creates the ability for someone to make a right turn and then make a U-turn and head back the way they wanted to in another driveway, an adjacent property. So I don't always recommend doing that as well.
Well, they have to go pretty far to turn right and make a U-turn.
Well, if that's the case, then they may just ignore the turn prohibition.
Left.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
Mr. Chairman.
No, I understand.
The status with the county right now is that back in 2021, there was a discussion of whether there should be a left-hand turn lane, and the county said they didn't feel that it was necessary. More recently, in connection with the Indian Temple down the road, which apparently is right now not an active project, according to Ms. Dolan from Doug's office, they have discussed the left-hand lane for them. They haven't acted on our application. They want to see what the board does first before they act on the application. So we don't know if they're going to want to talk about a left-hand turn lane or not. That's something that obviously we'll deal with when we're done here, and we need to deal with the...
Now, are you talking about a left-hand turn lane for turning out of it? Into it.
Yes, but they've talked about it in connection with the Indian Temple. They haven't done anything with our application yet. Because that was a question that was raised, I think, from Mr. Healy, and that's or maybe it was the technical coordinating committee.
But according to your testimony, a left turn in is not really a big problem.
Yes, I would tend to agree with that based on the levels of service and the low volumes of that movement that are anticipated. I don't think a left turn lane is a necessity. The county has been reviewing our application. They haven't commented on whether a left turn lane would be requested or not, but I think they had requested for other applications along South Middlebush.
It wouldn't be a surprise to me if they don't have the right-of-way to
There's those type issues yet. I haven't investigated whether or not there's sufficient right-of-way along that corridor.
I mean, we'll have to deal with it. But I know you did want to hear what's going on with the county, so I'm reporting the up-to-date information.
Okay. Anything else?
I'd just like to ask Mr. Poliniak, I'm looking at page 4 of your report that has been submitted to the board. Perhaps it would be helpful if you told what the actual numbers were for the peak volume during the peak hour of 5 to 6 p.m., and then in terms of how many cars are going to be added to that volume on the road, on South Middlebush Road.
Yeah, that busiest hour, the two-way flow, had 1,550 cars over the course of that 5 to 6 o'clock hour.
That's in both directions?
That is combined two-way flow, yes. Every other hour that we looked at that is associated with our prayer sessions were at least 500 vehicles less than that, so that 5 o'clock hour is by far the busiest when there will be a prayer session.
So now I get to ask a question that neither of you really can answer, but there would probably be somebody here from your group that could provide an answer. Why don't we have that, instead of crashing through 5 o'clock, why don't we have that prayer meeting be at 4 o'clock, go you 4 and then to 7 and then 9? It would seem to me that if the volume is more than 500 cars less, that might be something that your client might want to consider.
Can I answer that question? I don't think it's flexible. I don't think you get to decide when you choose to pray. I think that those are mandated times at certain times of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's religious reasons for that, not just convenience.
Oh, see, I didn't turn my hearing aid up loud enough to hear what you said, but I get what he's saying.
Oh, okay.
All right, good.
Her answer was better. Her answer was a lot better.
What I said was that I don't think it's flexible like that. It's sunrise and certain times of the day.
It's a thought.
I thought the same thing. Why not just avoid that hour altogether? Well, it's easier in other religions than it is in this one. Okay, and one of the reasons I asked you that, Mr. Poliniak, is which lane is it, northbound, southbound, which is causing the most stress in terms of a left-hand turn?
The southbound volumes on South Middlebush during that hour are about 850 vehicles, and northbound is 700. So you have 150 more southbound vehicles than northbound.
Okay, and I know this is probably silly and you're going to look at me, but 850 vehicles in 60 minutes equals how many vehicles per minute?
Let me get my calculator out. I mean, 10, over, 12, 12-ish, 13. Yeah,
okay, and that's the point I'm making. I mean, is that a characteristic? Would that characterize a bumper-to-bumper situation or one where the traffic is stopped?
No, I mean, that's not necessarily based on the volume as much as the capacity of the roadway, whether there's upstream and downstream intersections, other vehicles creating delay. Like I said, the times that I've been out there, it's not the volume that necessarily creates the backups or congestion or slowness of the vehicles. It's turning movements from other intersections. Those are the parts that cause queues and delay. So, the northbound experiences that as well if a car's making a left turn somewhere. But, without those movements, like I said, South Middlebush Road does provide gaps in traffic. There's times where, the signal to the south will stop traffic and you'll get a steady stream I'm sorry, not a steady stream, a nice period of northbound flow without vehicles, where that's why the inbound movement, that left turn, works at a decent level of service, or great level of service, actually, and the northbound, or the right turn onto northbound would work well as well. But the left turn egress, yeah, that's the critical movement, and that's the critical peak time, so it's got to conflict with or compete with both the northbound and southbound stream of traffic.
So this E level of service, how long of a wait are we talking?
That was a D.
D,
And
that's
based on our calculations, about 30 seconds and change, 33 seconds of delay.
And about how long is your typical traffic light, a red light?
A lot of traffic lights work on a 90-second cycle or 120-second cycle. So, I mean, 30 seconds is not uncommon for a red light. No.
That's considered acceptable under IT standards?
Yeah, I mean, traffic signals are operated based upon the demands at each approach. So, a state highway will have considerably more green time, and then your side street approaches could have up to 50 seconds of stop while the highway's running, or 70 seconds of stop. So, yeah, there are plenty of traffic lights in the state that have a red light of 30 seconds or more.
I've interrupted your testimony. Do you want to continue with your testimony?
No, I mean, I was basically...
Sir, sorry, one
Yeah.
question. When this study was conducted, were there any accidents that happened on that road during that period of time?
We are not aware of any accidents that took place during that time. That's why we averaged the days Monday through Friday to get a kind of a common day. There were no days that, from my review of the data, that seemed to have any, obscene spike, either super low or super high. They were all within a certain level of comfort, 100 vehicles, but that's kind of normal for daily fluctuations in traffic.
Sure, because that road does get a fairly decent amount of accidents. We get those Nixle notifications that there's an accident, and then there's a huge line backup that happens on that particular road. And I don't know if this is something that maybe the board needs to consider, that this was done possibly, during late fall or fall time. Is it a requirement? Can we ask or request something that happens in summertime? Does that change the volume? I don't have an answer. I really don't know. So maybe it's you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, often when we're in communities that aren't vacation communities, not down the shore, we often are required by our reviewers, or just by general practice, to do our traffic counts when schools are in session and there's low vacation times. Now, when we're down the shore and we're doing traffic studies, it's often recommended that we do summer counts because everyone's heading down there. I would imagine, in Somerset County, particularly in this area, during the summer, volumes would likely be lower due to children on school and people taking their vacation time. So your standard commuter hours would be a little lower.
Yeah, that's why I asked about him doing it in October, because everybody's back at school, people aren't taking vacations yet, there's no holidays.
Maybe I'm being a little naive about this or have the wrong perspective, but isn't it safe to say that your 30-second or your 60-second delay, that falls on the people coming out of this driveway and entering the highway? To the general traveling public on South Middlebush Road, there's no delay, basically. And the people coming out of the driveway, for better or worse, do have a choice. You don't have to pull out until it's safe. I mean, you can't legislate all that stuff for everybody. In a lot of times that we've asked for things like this, I can't foresee if this is approved. If you have to put a stoplight up there, it means either this facility has grown out of proportion or something's happened elsewhere along South Middlebush Road where everything multiplies exponentially. But I don't see a traffic light in my lifetime being put up there?
No, I haven't done traffic counts, but I would imagine that Cordelou or Jacques would generate more peak hour traffic than the 30 we have coming. I don't know that for certain, but those intersections don't warn those signals either. So, like you said, if there's a signal at this driveway, something's far unforeseen
I can
occurred.
only base it on my experience because I live on a street that's pretty much as busy as this one is. I can always make a left turn. I might not make it when I drive to the end of the driveway. You know, the idea that people think they can drive somewhere and not have to stop at a stoplight or stop for something is, in New Jersey at least, is absurd.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm not saying there's not periods of time where the left is very difficult. You know, the first time I visited the site, my first left turn was difficult, and then there were a number of times I just drove and kept, you know, testing out the ability to make turns, and there were times where there's plenty of time upstream and downstream to make a left turn out of any of the side streets along South Middlebush. So, yeah, I understand that sometimes you're going to wait a little if you do desire to make that left turn, but right turns are faster, and there eventually will be a gap in traffic where you can make that turn.
I actually think that making a left turn in might spontaneously be a little more dangerous because you have high-speed traffic and they're not paying attention. All of a sudden, someone decides to make a left turn in, and everyone's got to suddenly stop. But it is what it is. It's not approved yet. We have to go a ways with that. Anything else?
Sorry, and I'm just processing all of this, so please pardon multiple questions.
No, that's what I'm here for.
Now I'm talking about the, the people who will come from the prayer house, from the mosque, merging onto the road. Okay. The last car, assuming that everyone is kind of coming out at the same time or a similar time, simple math tells me that the last car that will possibly make a left or a right turn will have waited 12 to 15 minutes to exit that place. Because, and I'm going just by your 30-second rule, okay, which right now I have to take it on face value, but I'm saying at the peak hours time. There are times that you're absolutely right. If it was the 1 o'clock prayer, I don't expect, fundamentally, I have never experienced issues making a left or a right turn on that road. But I'm talking only about the peak hour time frame. It would take a substantial amount of time to clear the traffic from there.
Like I said, you're going to have moments in that traffic where you have a right-turning vehicle, and like I said, northbound flow is less, and they'll shoot right out. You know, they'll stop and go. There'll be times even where you could probably process 2 left turns and a gap. So while it's a 35-second average per vehicle, like I said, you're going to have some vehicles will certainly have no wait. Those will be, those will be a less volume that will have no wait. But no, it's not going to be just a train of every vehicle 30 just sitting there waiting to get out. I mean, if it were to be, that's all on their property and a queue for their worshipers, and they're going to have to deal with that. But I don't envision that happening at all.
There's one other point. Is that 5 o'clock service a required one for somebody? My point being that if I'm going there and I'm concerned about my safety getting out of the facility, then maybe I go to the later one.
Well,
or to the dawn one. There are choices. People can make choices.
I think that a practicing Muslim, and that's not the right way. Someone who's a really observant Muslim is going to go to every prayer service. So it's not like you might pick 9 o'clock mass versus 10 o'clock mass or 11 o'clock mass. I happen to know about that. My wife's Catholic, so I know that. So, but it's not like that. You're supposed to attend each prayer meeting. So it's not exactly like that. But My question is, Doug, how many cars are we talking about at that 5 o'clock service? I mean, we're talking about a typical weekday 5 o'clock service.
Yeah.
How many people are we talking about? How many cars?
Well, like we said, it's 60 worshipers arriving, in any number of people within their vehicle. We looked at originally 3 per car, which would then lend itself to 20 in and 20 out. For our analysis, we dropped it to 2 per car, which was 30 in and 30 out. So you're looking at conservatively 30 vehicles entering and then 30 vehicles exiting when the service is over.
Okay, if we're talking about the peak number of people that declining anticipates and only 2 people per car.
Correct.
Okay, worst case scenario.
Correct.
Okay, let's take a even busier time. Let's talk about even say 70 people.
Okay.
And let's talk about 2 per cars. Did you study what would happen if there were more than 30 cars, if there were even, let's say, 35 or 40 cars at any given time, including that peak hour?
Yes, that wasn't included in our report, but we heard some comments from prior hearings. So we looked at if there was one of those special events where there was the 150 mats that we discussed, and if we did an analysis of that with 3 people per vehicle, then you're looking at 50 vehicles entering and 50 vehicles exiting. And under that analysis, you continue to have the A level of service for a left turn in. However, the egress volume would then, level of service would then go to a level service E. It would not reach its capacity, but even during those special events, you'd still have a level of service E coming out of that driveway.
However, it's important to note that the client has committed itself that for special events like that, they will hire an off-duty police person, somebody to handle traffic. So would that remediate even the level E service?
Yes, I believe it would. I think a safety officer, if he were directing traffic, would essentially operate similarly to a traffic signal. He'd be able to determine when there were sufficient gaps to stop South Middlebush traffic or to allow parishioners to enter or exit. He could stop traffic. So I think overall that would be a, help reduce delay at that location.
That's all the questions I have.
Anything from the board?
I have one if I can. So your study was from Monday, October 7th through Friday, October 11th, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Do you have any weekend data for a Saturday or Sunday?
I don't. And primarily the reason being is that those commuter hours usually, more times than not, are the busiest peak hours. So when you have that evening peak hour that's experiencing the almost 1,600 vehicles, it's probably the critical hour. And
sure, I get that, but council, this is a 5 times a day, 7 days a week proposal, correct? 5 prayers a day, 7 days a week.
Do you have them on weekends? Yes.
So I just thought that maybe a Saturday and Sunday numbers would be relevant.
He's the expert. He'd have to explain why he didn't do it on weekends. I mean, I think he's explained it, because this is when the rush hour is.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, commuter peak hours are more often than not the highest you'll see, more so than a Saturday or Sunday. I know shopping hours peak, but there's nothing like an evening rush.
I think it involves the summer, but especially in the fall, where your next door neighbor on the farm runs different activities on weekends, especially.
Yeah.
You didn't take that into consideration because that can be pretty crowded.
The answer is no, because we didn't do any weekend counts. I would anticipate still, I have not experienced the operations of the farm. If they are of that volume, I think it would have to be a pretty substantial volume to reach those morning and evening rush hours during the week. But like I said, I'm unaware of the volume that they generate, and
Well, it's also pretty close driveways. pretty close to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't studied the farm's operations.
Mr. Pleniak, I haven't talked about, and I should have, about the parking, on-site parking. Do you have an opinion as to the traffic flow on the on-site parking and also the new proposal for banking 60 parking spaces?
Yes, I was going to touch upon that briefly. Mr. Ardman hit a lot of that. If I'm repetitive, forgive me. The 150 spaces that are proposed, 60 of them will be banked, so we're having 97 parking spaces. That's inclusive of 5 ADA spaces. Certainly, on your common standard 60 attendee day, the 97 spaces will be more than adequate. And then on those special occasions when you're looking at 150 visitors with 3 people per vehicle, you're looking at 50 parking spaces, or 2 people per vehicle. You have 75 parking spaces. So I'm pretty certain, and I agree with Mr. Ardman, that the 97 spaces that will be constructed can handle that demand.
Okay, anything else? No. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, 2. So at the beginning of your testimony, you stated a threshold with the DOT for a significant impact.
Yeah.
That was 100 vehicles per hour or per day?
That's an hour.
But you said okay, so it's an hour, not for the day. And I guess my other question is, in terms of special events, with the holy holidays, weddings, funeral in the memo that was provided, how often do those special occasions need to occur before you consider that as part of your baseline traffic impact study? Because all your testimony, the far majority of your report was surrounded by the 50 to 60 number that we've been discussing.
Right, and like I said, I did do an analysis with the 150 of 3 per vehicle. That wasn't in our base traffic report, just to see if the 50 in and out would exceed the capacity. And like I said, I went to level service E. I mean, I think honestly, if you're talking about how frequent it would have to be part of our study, almost daily, daily condition, certainly weekly, because you'd have that traffic safety officer out there that frequently.
Well, if it was that frequently, you wouldn't have a traffic safety officer, and you'd probably need some warrant for a traffic signal at that point.
Yeah, so you would need 150 before I don't want to start estimating warrants for traffic signals now, but you'd probably need that to occur a few hours a day, possibly to hit a couple warrants. Because you may hit a peak hour warrant, but usually you want to reach more than 1 warrant. So you'd have to have 150 entering and 150 exiting. That's 150 people. So you're looking at 50 vehicles entering and exiting. You might not, I don't think you're hitting the warrants even at a special event.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating for or against the traffic signal.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the basis of the report was on the 50 to 60,
right,
and then the special events. But I don't recall hearing anything about the number of special events throughout the year. We have a couple of high holy holidays, a couple of weddings, a couple of funerals. I mean, is this going to be something that's weekly, every other week?
No.
Like, how often would you anticipate?
My understanding of a special event might be maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and then you have a few days during Ramadan when it would be that busy during that 1 hour. And of course, in order to be able to have that many people, we'd have to get a special event permit.
Well, my concern would be, and it's just a concern, right? I mean, you're answering it, is if we had that many special events and there was a need to have a police officer out there that often, that's concerning.
Well, my understanding of a special event permit is that somebody's going to review it and decide whether it's okay. So, 3 to 5 times, okay. But if it's all of a sudden 3 or 5 times a week, no, you're not going to get the permit. Now you change what you're doing out there, because you told us you're going to have 50 to 60 people there at a time. So, to me, special event, it's regulated. It's going to be regulated by your administrative people. It's only going to be, a few times a year.
Okay, I just curious more than anything.
No, that's not my understanding of what a special event's going to be. That's going to happen all the time.
I mean, we can define the whole holy holidays. That's relatively easy. I was just more questioning the weddings, the funerals, and maybe something else.
No funerals.
Yeah, it's in the report.
But what they're working with is you're working with a resolution that in which they said no weddings or funerals.
We said that there might be 3 to 5 a year.
No.
And just for my own edification, for those prayer sessions, is it just 1 hour for a wedding, or is it still 5? I'm just curious.
It was my understanding it was 1.
Okay.
Just that you clarify whether there's going to be weddings or funerals, because we keep referencing the statement of the property use, and it says there are weddings and funerals at the facility.
And
It's not ceremony there.
I just have an additional question that Ramadan is a month. Okay, it's not 4 or 5 days. It's a holy month. So if it's going to be peak, it's not 4 or 5 days. It's going to be for a month. Okay. Second question, and possibly that is for Mark. Sir, sorry to have put you on spot again. Have we approved anything else around in the region or surrounding that also adds to the traffic here? Because if you're looking at this in isolation, and let's say somewhere 300 feet, half a mile away, there is another institute that is being built that is adding something similar that's already been approved, then what's the impact?
Well, I can't answer that second part of the question about the impact to traffic, but as far as other nearby developments, there is another house of worship that was approved basically across the street. Around
And
the
how
same
much
time.
traffic are they anticipating?
Oh, I don't know. It was before this board about 5 years ago.
Correct. So what I'm saying is, let's say if they have, and I'm making this up because none of us have that numbers, but if there is,
I could probably assist you with that a bit. That was, I believe, the Sci Data application. They have my understanding is they have a floating worship situation where they don't have necessarily set times over the course of the day. You visit freely, but they do have larger crowds in the evening after rush hour. I believe 7 and 9 o'clock, or 7 or 8 o'clock, after the evening rush hour. So, we didn't necessarily take their volumes into account because it's not conflicting during that critical 5 o'clock peak hour when everything's crunched. I think if you were to add all of their traffic at 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock to South Middlebush Road, it still wouldn't reach the volume that's at 5 o'clock. So 5 o'clock would still remain that critical hour even without their traffic. So it's been taken into account, but it hasn't been taken into account because it doesn't impact that critical time when this site would experience its busiest time frame and that roadway experience its busiest time frame.
Any other questions?
Yes, I'm still waiting for an answer on the weddings and funerals.
Exactly.
yeah, and I'm also waiting on the answer for Ramadan. It's a month. It's not 4 or 5 days.
3 or 4 weddings or funerals together per year. And that's in my statement here. Okay, but it's not a full wedding and funeral, like it's not a ceremony and a reception or something. It's relatively short. And regarding Ramadan, yes, there would be each day of Ramadan, and again, it would be a special use permit if it's going to exceed 150 people. And I believe Mr. Poliniak has testified that he has already...
Not exceed 150 people.
Yes.
Reach 150 people.
150 people.
Not exceed.
If it's fewer than 150 people.
Correct.
Yes, I'm sorry. If it exceeds that much, we'll be getting a special use. We'll have to get a special use permit.
What would be the threshold for a special use permit in this scenario?
150 people during Ramadan.
No. So my understanding of the testimony is that you're anticipating 50 to 60 per prayer service 5 times a day. That's the baseline, right? Somewhere in there. So at what point between that 60th car anticipated and the 150th car anticipated would be a special use permit?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the testimony is the average prayer service. We'll just say 60 cars. That's on the higher end of the spectrum.
Oh, no, that's really on the high. I mean,
No, yeah. I'm not critiquing. I'm just trying to draw a baseline here. And then it says on the special events, up to 150 people. So where would that special events permit fall within that 60 to 150 anticipated
I
vehicles?
think you're asking when it would kick in. 80 cars, 90 cars, right?
Yeah, it was very clear to me, but apparently not to everyone else. But
see,
yes.
we're talking about cars and people.
Or people, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, then that's
Yeah.
obviously a big distinction. Okay.
late.
What we said was Township will apply for a special event permit for high holy day events or weddings and funerals that will draw a larger than normal crowd, parens, no more than 150 people at a time for occasional special events.
Yeah, but is that 65, 70, 75, 80?
Yes. I mean, how many? I think the board's going to condition it, but what we have said is that typically we're going to have the highest amount we're going to have in a prayer session is 70 to 80 people during Ramadan. Okay, so that is the benchmark, and we're going over that. Let's say over 100 people. That's when we're talking about special event.
I mean, I'm just...
Am I not making myself clear?
Well, I think it's something that we really haven't discussed in any great detail. Like, we understand special events permit, we're understanding the 60, you're saying 70, but where does that kick in? And I think that's just something we need to consider, like, and Darren's nodding, so it's all you.
During Ramadan, prayer sessions may be slightly larger, approximately 70 to 80 people each service. Okay, so that's one benchmark. Okay.
9 p.m. onwards, only on Ramadan, not on daytime.
You don't have daytime?
Daytime's normal people, they all go to work, okay? Only at night time, after 9 o'clock.
Even during Ramadan?
I don't think we're finishing tonight. I mean, maybe you guys come back with us with what you think it fits your schedule.
You know, Mr. Protanic, first of all, I'll pay $20 for that bottle of water right now, okay? Even without vodka in it, okay? But I'm getting myself confused because the numbers here are correct, and you're right. I need to get clarification because I'm not explaining myself right. Maybe it's, thirst and the end of the evening. But the numbers are correct here. He wants to take my $20.
You want another one?
Thank you, sir.
And sir, when you're getting that clarification, I have a request because up 2 paragraphs or 1 paragraph, it says 150 people for occasional special events. Yeah. So which one is it? Is it 150 or is it 70 to 80?
Yeah. Okay. The 150, I think, was just explaining that we don't anticipate we're going to be exceeding 150 people. That was the reason for the 150. The 70 to 80 is the people that we expect during Ramadan at the evening sessions. It's been clarified to me that during the day, people are still going to work and stuff. It's going to be the same. It's only the evening prayer sessions that could be up to 70 to 80 people, which is consistent with Doug's testimony. When we said that we could go to no more than 150 people is for a special high holiday event, wedding, or funeral, which is not every day at Ramadan. It's just special events during Ramadan. I don't know if I'm clarifying myself, but
because in past you have referred to, it says permit for holy day events, and in past, and I'm not holding you to, and look, everyone's learning here, so I understand. Ramadan is the holy month. So it's not like this day or that day or something, except when, and again, with my limited knowledge, there is Eid that everyone celebrates. Okay. But that 150 people, when you are saying it's permit for high holy day events, that is a month.
No. Okay. First of all, the Big Eid is not going to take place at this property. The client rents out actually a hotel where they have the Big Eid. Okay, that's number one. Number two, only during Ramadan, the only time that they have more than the usual 50 to 60 people is the evening service. Otherwise, people are going to work during the day. During that Ramadan prayer session in the evening, approximately 70 to 80 people could be expected at the service. The 150 people comes in by our saying we are not going to exceed 150 people at any time. Special events may have up to 150 people. If we're doing a special event, we're going to apply for a permit and we're going to have a police officer outside directing traffic. All right. But we're not going to exceed 150, and that's why Mr. Mystery showed the 150 people, showing that's the most people we're going to have at this site at a time. Mr. Chairman, is that clear? Sir, is that clear?
It's clear to me. I think, from my perspective, is we're categorizing the special events based on a certain day. I was kind of looking at it more in terms of number of people. So if something came up and the facility anticipated 75 people, would that trigger the special events permit? Okay. That was just my perspective.
That's a really fair question. And if I'm Mr. Hack, I'm wondering, like, what am I going to put in this resolution? Okay.
Numbers are quantifiable.
And one of my jobs, as Mr. Hack knows, I sit on that side also. And I'm going to say, give us a little bit of leeway. We're saying 70 to 80 people. Let's say, let's say 100 people, above 100 people, we need a special event permit, and we're not going to exceed 150 people at any given time.
I think it's worth considering. I don't.
My client's nodding his head to consent that will. Sir, do you want this back or?
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a few quickly. So on page 3, your trip generation, you said you evaluated this as 2 to 3 people in a car per trip, correct?
Yes.
So then can you give me testimony of why at the bank parking area you would need 97 spaces for if there's expected to be 2 to 3 people per trip? Because that puts the floor at 50 to probably 75, or are we closer to 100 now?
If I understand the question, I think you're asking why 97 spaces with...
Well, you use trip generation to determine, use 2 to 3 people in a vehicle for trip generation, but then for parking, you're using a different number now. So
No, not necessarily.
Well, you have 97. You said that there need to be 97 for the 150 users, and there was also testimony that these users should come one in a car, which you haven't really touched on yet either. That's why I wanted to get that on the record, because that could start triggering this as a major traffic issue too, only on special days. So.
No, I mean, what I would say is, on average, using a lower parking requirement of 2 people per vehicle is 75 for 150 for those capped days. They're showing, or we're having 97 spaces, so it's what, 23 space? 24, where am I at? 20 plus spaces extra than that 75. I don't think necessarily you want to design specifically exactly for that volume.
No, but your whole testimony has been that it's mostly going to be 60 to 70 vehicles. So at that token, you're more at like 30 cars. So now you're triple the normal parking you would need. That's where I'm having a disconnect right now.
Yeah, I'm a little lost. On a normal day, I was conservatively projecting 30 vehicles entering.
Okay.
So somewhere in the ballpark of 30 parking spaces needed 5 times a day on a weekday.
Yep.
On those special occasions, if you had 3 people per vehicle, that would be 50 vehicles entering. Or if you had 2 people, it would be 75 vehicles. And I think as Mitch had said, we wanted to look at 2 to make sure that we don't want to be running back here and getting more parking. Because, it may not be 3 people per vehicle, it could be 2 people. But then there's an excess because you don't want to design exactly for the 75 parking spaces.
What I'm saying is, so then that basically works out to, let's just say roughly 1.5 spaces, per parishioner. So then why wouldn't you use that back in your trip generation then if that's the worst case scenario? And why are you using 2 to 3? You're kind of splitting, you're looking at this in a benefit for the applicant, but not.
Yeah, I don't know if I understand that or agree with that. My traffic report was based on the 60 visitors.
Correct.
At 2 per vehicle.
Correct.
So that is 30 in and 30 out. I think that's pretty conservative as far as with respect to the vehicles coming in during those 5 periods during the day, I think it's probably going to be less. Now, let's move that on to parking. So I'm clear. We're designing, or we're ensuring that there's sufficient parking for those high holy days with the 150. So we certainly have to provide bare minimum 150 parking spaces, but that's if everyone took their own car, which is not going to happen. So then we looked at other parking ratios of either 3 per vehicle, which could be 50 parking spaces, or conservatively 2 per vehicle, which would be 75 parking spaces. So that's where
You're getting more conservative. You're like 1.5 cars per people. That's where I'm getting.
Yes.
Now, if you were to apply
correct.
that same, where I'm getting at is if you apply that same ratio in your trip generation, then your trip generation, now this becomes a major project because it's going to be more than 100 trips.
Oh, I'm not necessarily proposing additional, I'm not saying that the 97 parking spaces are all going to be full.
So why don't we talk about land banking some of those?
Well, like I was going to say, you don't want to propose exactly as many parking spaces as you need, because then someone has to hunt and peck and look for a parking space if there's one free. You always like to have a little bit of a surplus just for convenience.
Yeah, but your surplus is 25%.
But
on a day, sometimes maybe 4 or 5 times a year.
we had this conversation, this dialogue at the beginning tonight.
No, you didn't. You didn't have him with his trip generation, so I disagree.
No, I understand, but the problem is that we're asking for a parking variance, and we're trying to maximize the number of spaces, but consistent also with what we're doing on a property. So if you're suggesting we should land bank another 15 or 30, I suppose.
It's 60 trips per.
I know. All right, so I think I can maybe help you. And I'm sorry, my math wasn't great. So you're saying on a common day, if we go back to the parking ratio of 1.5 and apply it to the people that we intend, that's 40 vehicles as opposed to the 30 used in my traffic report.
Well, there's that, and then there's also now the 70 to 80 days, which you said is going to be a higher level, which is not going to be a holy holiday. That's where I was getting at with it, because that testimony changed from the 40 to 60. Or I'm sorry, 50 to 60. Because now they're, so what Rich's question was, what triggers a special permit? And that's kind of where I'm getting at now, because now the testimony is Ramadan at 70-80 is part of the testimony. So I think we have to look at the 70-80 in that respect, and that's where at 1.5 that trip generation is going to get closer to 100.
100 total, but 50 in, 50 out. And that is, I did say that I ran that analysis now within my study for about 50 vehicles, and that's when we were getting that level of service E. So,
and then you have 97. But then you so 50 in, 50 out, we have 97 spaces. That's where I'm disconnected.
yeah, but, and I hope I can eloquently say this, I think we're comparing 2 different time periods, because if we use the ratio of parking for the 150, I think that's where you got the 1.5 from.
Yes.
If we apply that to your standard day at 60, that goes to 40 vehicles in and 40 vehicles out, which is slightly higher than what was in my initial report.
Yes, but also what I was saying too is part of the statement of property use, it was testified that 70 to 80 people will be there on the Ramadan services, which is not part of the special permit.
Okay.
So that's why I'm considering that.
Right, okay, so the 70 to 80 for Ramadan, that analysis also falls within that analysis that I did outside of our traffic report for the 50 people and 50 out, using 7 or 80 people at a 1.5. So we did look at that, and if it was that ratio that didn't reach 2, then we'd be more at a level of service E.
Well, yeah, I guess 50 and 50 out, so I understand you want overflow. You're not going to want to have exactly 50 spots.
Correct.
Hypothetically.
Correct.
But now we're almost double that number. That's where.
Well, not necessarily during those special occasions. If people show up at 2 per vehicle, then you're more in the 75 range.
Sure, but I just wanted to make sure that's clear, because this started with 150 spaces, now there's 60 banked, and we're at 90.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to have 90 spaces for a site that's only going to really need 30 to 40 on most given days.
During your standard day, correct.
And that's where I think that maybe more appropriate on those holy holidays to consider that as a land bank. We're going to 2 different extremes. On parking, we're going on a high extreme, but in trip generation, we're on the lower extreme. So I think I'm just looking for that to blend a little better. That's my comments. I mean, I know it's a lot on the spot. I think you'll be coming back if you want to touch on it.
Yeah, I would have to talk to the team. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but I like I said, I still continue to think that the 97 spaces are appropriate. I mean, there may be a handful that don't get used from time to time, but why
True, but I mean,
take the chance for 5 spaces or 10 spaces?
It says 4 to 5 people would come to the vehicle. So on that token, now we're at 30. I mean, that's why I think
Yeah, no,
we're
it's
making
a
a big guess, and we're putting out a lot of parking that we don't know if we fully need yet, is where I'm getting at.
What I'm concerned about from a legal standpoint is you're suggesting we should have fewer parking spaces, and so we're aggravating the variance.
No, I'm testifying that you should have the sufficient amount of parking for your testimony. The testimony is...
Which would reduce number of spaces.
It would, but I'm not...
Because, worst case scenario, we have 149 people there. You're saying, well, maybe we only need 75 spaces. Okay, one day, everybody decides to drive themselves. I don't know. And we have a problem. But if I agree, yes, let's land bank more spaces, now all of a sudden I have a greater variance to prove. And so I'm boxing myself in a corner.
I understand what you're coming from there, but you typically don't design for the one-off occasion. That's just in my design practice, and that's what's being designed.
But for the one-off occasion, I want to be sure I have enough parking spaces. I mean, I don't think the applicant has a really strong feeling about how many spaces should be out there. We're just trying to reach a happy medium, and that's why we came up with 30 more bank spaces.
No, understood. I just, looking at this from my perspective, if you have 100 spaces there and 2 people come there on a given day, that's 75 spaces that you're using. You're pushing up on a higher level of what you were testifying is normal. That's why, and that's where Rich was asking, what is that limit? And we're going higher without even getting there once the questions start. So
we're talking about 75 spaces plus 7 handicap spaces, and now we're at 82 spaces. So we're not talking about eliminating a lot of spaces.
But we're also...
But we are not going to die on this island either.
What I'm getting at is, though, those 75 spaces are only needed 5 times. Let's see if we actually need them before we go that far. But that's just my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Right. We're going to take a 5-minute break to take care of a couple of things and then come back and finish up. Adjourn for 5 minutes. Seats and get things underway.
Mitch, I don't know if it's necessary, but you want to pop in your... I lost your password.
We are at the point where the traffic testimony is basically completed. We also understand that's a concern for a lot of people. We are also beyond what our curfew usually is. So we're going to open to the public to ask traffic questions of the traffic engineer so that everybody gets a chance to hear what some of the concerns are, and then bring everybody back the next meeting to continue the cross-exam.
That is me. Yep.
So right now, unless everybody who's out there wants to stay out there, we will open to the public to ask questions concerning the traffic testimony.
Close the door.
We are going to allow 15 minutes tops for questions on traffic. Everybody could get back in and seated. We'll get going. And you're all set to go. Go ahead.
Yeah. I have to go home. I have to just ask my questions and then I'll just go back home. So again, my name is Jyoti, and the traffic on South Millbush Road directly impacts us in our community. So we had raised a lot of objections to the temple project as well. So this is in no way religious. And unfortunately, the temple project was approved. So here I am again, raising my objections about the traffic on South Millbush Road only because it impacts us directly and every day. I think that South Millbush Road right now cannot even take a house.
Mr. Chairman, this is not a
Forget about it,
question.
I just-
We need a question.
Yeah, so my question to the traffic engineer is that this study was done in 2024, which I think is a little outdated. And the other question is, you said that you only did from October 8th through 11th, which is just 5 days. And having commuted on that road for years, I agree with the committee member that said that you haven't, that 30-second is not appropriate. It's not, it's actually pretty laughable. I mean, I waited 10 minutes from Skillman's Lane just to turn on to South Millbush Road. Have you used any computer models, or you just, is this all by observation, the traffic?
No, the analysis, the level service analysis is performed by a software where you input the volumes.
And so what simulations have you done? Have you done rain, snow, accidents, any simulations?
No, like I said, we're analyzing a standard day for those 5 peak hours.
It's not a standard day, so we need best case scenarios
let him
and
finish.
worst case scenarios.
Let him finish.
As traffic engineers, we typically don't analyze days where there would be anything outside of the normal, certainly not an accident. Those are things that are, outside of normal conditions, unpredictable, and obviously are going to cause traffic issues on any type of roadway.
Okay, and the access is only through South Millbush Road, right? So people
Correct.
will make a left into the complex when they enter, and they make a right out of the complex when they exit.
They can make left turns and right turns in, and left turns and right turns out.
Oh, so both ways?
Yes.
Okay, and 5 p.m. also, have you, that also they can make a left?
Yes.
And a right?
Yes.
Okay, so there is no restriction on like them making only right when they exit the complex, right?
No, not unless through the county's review they put a restriction on it, but there has been no indication of that yet.
Okay, so I guess we only have 15 minutes, and I know other people have questions. So thank you for your time, and thank you.
Shampa Bhattacharya again, 15 Hasbrook Drive. Your first assumption was made 3 people to a car, and then you changed that to 2 people to a car. I have a question to my entire audience here. How many of you drove here 3 people to a car today, including you, sir? The board members. Anybody?
I'm going to object to that. It's time for questions to the witness.
Did you drive 3 to a car?
No, but when I go to my place of worship, I have 4 to a car.
Oh, normally I don't. That's why I asked. When you are, my next question, sir. You're an engineer. When we are stress testing or load testing any model, we do worst case scenario, which is maximum number. In this case, the maximum number of people coming into the facility as declared on a normal day is 60, on high traffic days 70 to 80, to a max of 150. So when we are testing the model of traffic, it should be 1 person to a car, because that's the worst case scenario. Can you please redo a model like that? Because if it ends up being 1 person to a car, we don't want to learn about it after it has happened. We want to know of it before. How it impacts traffic, what is the traffic, the max traffic, maximum quantifiable traffic capacity of South Middlebush right now at those 5 times when the mosque is expecting people? That's a very justifiable question, right? We need to know that.
No, I don't necessarily agree if the characteristics of the use don't call for 1 person per vehicle. If it's, typically for houses of worship,
we cannot guarantee that, though, can we?
What's that?
We cannot guarantee that, though, can we? We have to have the worst case scenario. That's how models are tested.
There's no question. There's no question.
So my question is, what is the maximum traffic capacity at those 5 times when guests are expected at the mosque, and based on the typical model, passenger car per hour per lane, which is a single lane here. Have you studied that?
I'm not sure I understand what maximum capacity means. Do you understand
Maximum capacity means, I will describe it. I'm sure your traffic engineer can describe it too. Would you like to?
No.
No, okay.
What I could say is I testified previously that we had done an analysis of an anticipated day of when there was going to be 150 visitors on site, assuming 3 people per vehicle, which is 50 vehicles in and 50 vehicles out. And we still had a level of service E for the exiting movement and an A for entering. But also it's important to note that at those special events, there will be a traffic officer that is hired to control traffic, which essentially is not modeled in an analysis because the traffic officer will do his best to mitigate traffic conditions and reduce delay as much as possible.
So to answer your question, maximum traffic capacity means...
I didn't ask a question.
No, he did. The gentleman next to you did. He said, what is maximum traffic capacity? And I asked you if you could answer. You said no. So I'm answering for you. It is the maximum hourly rate at which vehicles can reasonably be expected to traverse a point under the prevailing, and it is measured by passenger cars per hour per lane. And according to you here, it is at 5 p.m., 1,550 cars, right? Yeah, it's 2 lanes in both directions. That's the max. Typically, the maximum capacity on highways is 18 to 2,200 cars. So on a single lane, if it is going to be about 750, how can we say that this is something that tax-paying residents can just put up with? I mean, as it is, we all know that South Middlebush is maxed out. That's why they are making a turning lane on Curtilius and one more. Is that right? Am I right? There are plans for a turning lane? Because there's problems right now turning into...
This is becoming a lot of testimony, so unless we're
No, my
going to put her
question,
under oath.
is it true that there's a turning lane plan?
No, but you're not asking the witness a question. Now you're asking the board, and that's not what you're supposed to do.
So I can only ask the witness, not the board. I cannot ask questions to you.
No.
Okay. Okay. So, given that there are plans for a turning lane from Curtilius, because obviously the plans given by the board must be because there is problems turning. Do you know about this, and how do you interpret this with extra traffic on this road? Have you put this into your study?
Which question? I don't understand which question she wants him to answer.
I want the question to be answered that there are plans for a turning lane from Curtilius, which proves that right now there's problems with the cars turning into South Middlebush.
Can you just reference what plan you're discussing?
It is on your website. If you go, there is turning lanes.
Please, just ask him a direct question.
My question is, if there's already plans for a turning lane, how have you put this into your calculations? Because that means there is problems with cars turning into South Middlebush. Have you considered this in your plan?
If I were studying the intersections of Cordeloo, I would use the lane configuration that currently exists, and if I knew of a plan where lanes were to be added, I would likely do an analysis with those lanes included as well for a future condition, but I don't know the relevance to that analysis when compared to the analysis of the site driveway.
Because
you can ask questions, but what you're trying to do is get him to say what you want.
Do you have analysis of the traffic for the 5 a.m. Service that is going to happen at the mosque, which will end around 6 o'clock, and there will be school buses?
Yes.
Do you have an analysis of that?
Yes.
Well, the problem is that she puts a lot of testimony into the question that invalidates the question. The prayer meetings are half an hour, so her assumption that it's an hour is wrong.
No, you said it's half an hour to congregate, half an hour for the meeting, half an hour to leave.
The two-way volume on South Middlebush during that 5 to 6 hour is 300 trips, when during the evening at 5 o'clock at night, it's 1,500 trips. So it's 1/5 of the traffic on South Middlebush as opposed to that evening that I called the critical hour.
Okay.
So the driveway will operate much better during that 5 o'clock hour than it does during the evening hour.
And again, the last question is, have you done an analysis, I think I asked this before, at these 5 timings? You referred to the peak timing.
Yes.
Do we have analysis at the 5 timings
Yes.
that there is? Okay, so you can present that.
Yeah, well...
Not today, but
No, I can present it today. All the results will be better than what I testified to because the volume along South Middlebush is substantially lower during
2
the
years
other
ago.
sessions
1.5 years.
than during the 5 o'clock hour when there was a level of service D. During the other peak hours, those levels of service are better than D. In fact, they are C's and B's. But I wanted to present to the board what I consider the critical hour because it's the busiest time frame when there will be services in session.
Can we have a more recent study done before everything is approved? Because this is from 1.5 years ago, right? The traffic
Can you
pattern.
just touch on how you did a growth model as part of your analysis so that maybe that gets a little more understanding to it?
Yeah. Yes, our counts were done towards the end of 2024. Our report was done, middle of 2025. So at the time of the preparation of our report, the data was much less than a year old. But to account for any growth in the area, we applied that 1% growth factor that I stated earlier to inflate the volumes for a 2-year build-out.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Deva Villuri from 72 Vermont Avenue. Thank you for sharing all the data, sir. You mentioned you did the study in October 2024?
Yes.
For how long was it, sir?
It was a week of data collection.
1 week. And what about the reference to the August of 2025? There's no study in August 2025.
Our report was authored.
So this is during the school years?
The counts were, yes.
Yeah, so traffic engineering is a science by itself by now, very complex science. Like, did you take into account how many school buses were traversing through this Middlebush during that whole day? In and out, dropping and pickup?
Well, we do count buses. We did include a heavy vehicle percentage in our analysis, but the pickup and drop-off does not impact the analysis that we did for the driveway.
How come, sir? Like, because every time school bus stops on the road, at least 7 to 9 stops, not one bus, about 15 different buses stop on that road, morning and evening. Each time there's backed up traffic. Did you have the data in your analytics?
Not specifically those queues, but I'll say again, the worship hours that we studied were 5 to 6, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., the well-discussed 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., and then 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. So much of those hours do not have much school bus involvement.
Oh, there is school bus like in the morning hour, and 2 and 3 is the peakest of the peakest in this township. But have you taken into account the parents going in and picking up during the time frame? Leave aside the school buses.
Well, the traffic volumes along South Middlebush include passenger vehicles, buses, landscaper vehicles, motorcycles, whatever drove by the site was counted.
Okay. Well, why only 1 week of data? You can't correlate whole year projection basing on 1 week of data.
I mean, generally, when we do a traffic impact assessment, often we collect just one day of data during the peak hours. If we can isolate a common day when weather's acceptable, schools and business are open, and there's no detours. So I think in this case, having 5 days of data is appropriate.
Is the projection classification you're giving A, B, C, D categories, is it based on 1 lane, 2 lane? What's the criteria?
It's 1 lane in each direction. So the analysis includes our minor approach, which is the site access, with one approach coming out with a shared left turn and a right turn onto South Middlebush. And then the South Middlebush approaches include a northbound through and a shared right to enter the site, and a southbound through with a shared left turn into the site.
And does it take into account, we all know there is no shoulder either way?
Yeah, it doesn't include a shoulder, no.
And
Okay,
does it...
I hate to interrupt, but could you be more direct and specific with your questions?
I'm only asking
We don't
questions,
need
sir.
a
I'm not
description
making statements,
that
sir.
he's giving. We're familiar with the intersection. Ask some direct, specific questions.
I haven't made a statement. Everything I asked is a specific question. So when there is a emergency, 911 call, does your analysis say how long is the additional wait going to be?
No.
If there's a heart attack, if there's a...
No, we don't take into account emergencies. That throws off all of normal conditions and can't possibly be studied or predicted at all.
So, okay, that's all. I wanted to ask, like, there's a lot of unknown knowns, known unknowns. So it's all, when we get into the deep end, then only we'll know what we are paying, the township taxes, how we are going to leverage all this. Thank you.
Good evening. Greg Foster, 39 Labette Drive. I know you got your averages of people in cars from a computer software program that evidently a lot of people use. But it doesn't take into effect things like, well, you know, yeah, I'm going to services, but then after that I got to go right to work, so I'm going to drive by myself. Oh, I got to drop my kid off, so I'm going to be going by myself. Or I got to pick up my kid or go to the doctor or whatnot, so I'm going to drive by myself. I think there are going to be a lot more people that will be driving by themselves than 30 cars, an average of 2 or 3 per cars. And I know you said that during special events, there could be 50 cars, and you did a little bit of research on it, but didn't really report about it. And I'm wondering, is there a reason that you didn't do 50 or 60 cars on a daily basis and 5 daily services that could affect the results?
Well, our report was submitted to the board. I don't know what date, but it was performed in August of 2025.
Sorry, I haven't seen it, so.
No, it was August 2025. Since that time, there's been 1 or 2 proceedings, and there were some questions regarding, you know, how many people can, you know, maximum be allowed within the facility. And during that time, it was brought to our attention from the project team, like, hey, we should look into, you know, if we had 150 people show up, you know, in 50 vehicles, you know, would everything still be okay? So we did that analysis subsequent to the submission of our report, just to check it out. But like I said, there will be a traffic safety officer. And with those 50 vehicles entering and exiting, we found that there was a level service E. And I wasn't necessarily going to provide that information tonight, but since it came up, I did. But it wasn't something that was part of our initial analysis.
Okay, so let's assume, not really that it may happen, but let's consider that, okay, if 50 people drove by themselves, is that now E?
Yes, that based on the analysis that we did.
Okay.
Yes.
And is that in the report or any of the follow-ups?
It was not in a report. I just presented that testimony this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Johnston, 34 Norwich Place. When you did your analysis of the traffic, there's been a new development that just took place very recently. A few weeks ago, the town council announced that they're going to start going ahead with the building of Catalpa Park, right? that this is going to be a big park, tennis courts, basketball courts, cricket fields, and they're going to be building it on South Middlebush Road, and this is going to be a major tourist attraction, probably adding a lot more traffic to South Middlebush Road. And the town council just announced it just a few weeks ago. Are you all aware of that?
I am not, no. It sounds like it's very recent.
Yes, actually, as you may recall, Catalpa Park was first approved 10 years ago.
Okay, oh, wait.
Questions?
This is for questions. It's not for giving testimony.
Okay, well, the gentleman said he wasn't aware of it. So,
Right.
okay.
So that's okay. You've got your answer.
Okay. All right, so maybe somebody can tell him about it, okay? Okay, thank you.
Hi, Harvey Sorority, 8 Benjamin Griggs Drive. In your tool, do you put the speed limit in there? Because I'm trying to understand queuing. Does the speed limit affect the information that you put into your tool?
We do input it. It doesn't necessarily affect it. No, it does not.
It doesn't, okay. Do you know what the speed limit is on that road?
Yeah, I do. I believe, and I have it in my notes, I believe it's 45 miles per hour, but yeah, 45 miles per hour.
Okay, well, it could be 45, but most of us aren't able to drive 45 during that period of time. So based upon the fact that we can only probably drive maybe 30 to 35, wouldn't that change the amount of wait time that people would have on that road, especially during the peak hours?
What allows people to exit from or enter a major roadway from a minor roadway is gaps in traffic. So gaps in traffic don't necessarily change based on speed limit. If everybody's traveling 45 miles per hour, they're still this far apart. But if they're traveling at 25 miles per hour, they're still this far apart. So if vehicles are traveling slow, as long as there's sufficient gaps in the traffic, regardless of speed, it doesn't have an impact, the speed limit. It's just...
I mean, I would argue that if it's a faster speed, you have less of a chance to merge in and out as opposed to a slower speed.
Correct. And maybe I wasn't clear. It's not the distance of the gap as much as it's the time of the gap. So at a higher speed, gaps close faster. You know, cars coming on you fast. One car whips by, another car whips by.
Right.
So it's basically, if you have, the program uses about a 7-second gap for a left turn movement. So if you're traveling 45 miles per hour, the vehicles are traveling 45 miles per hour, or they're traveling 25 miles per hour, you still need that same size time of gap to recognize a car's coming, put your foot on the gas, and make the full left turn.
Well, I mean, you might have a same gap, but your reaction time is a lot different, going 45, 35, et cetera.
Sir, you're now engaged in a conversation, not asking questions.
Sorry.
Like I said, it's a time-based gap, so it's irrelevant of speed. I think what you're saying is of the size of the gap. So if there was, you know, a 50-foot gap in cars going 45 miles per hour or 25, in that case, yes, it would be much harder to get into a small physical gap at a higher speed.
Okay. So,
but the program looks at gaps for time, not for size.
right. So in that interval, though, when you're looking at, especially at the, I guess, the 5 p.m. time frame, wouldn't the traffic queue up longer during that period of time based upon the fact that you're actually not able to do the 50 mile an hour or 45 mile an hour speed?
Possibly, not necessarily. Like I said, it's dependent on the volume of traffic, coming out of the driveway. You could have high-speed traffic that's separated farther apart. So it's dependent. It's unique to each situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, last one.
You were reading my mind.
Rajesh Sangui, 2 Hashbrook Drive, Franklin Park. My question is, your study was done in 24, work from home. Now it's 26. Things have changed. The people are already going to work. So are you planning to do, or have you I guess, use those data or create a model to reflect that?
I mean, I don't believe, based on our experience, there wasn't that much of a change in traffic in 2024 from, I assume you're referencing COVID timeframes, things that opened up substantially more, if that's what you're asking.
In 24, I mean, now it is, but not that time.
I mean, we're only talking about like 15 months or so from the time of our report was
And
done.
thereafter, a lot of things change within government policies, which is basically forcing everyone to come to work. Wasn't the case before. And
Yeah.
that's basically what I'm reflecting. So the question is whether are they actually going to put that in their model, the analysis?
That's not my intention, no. Like I said, we counted that week. We applied a growth factor to account for any kind of growth outside of the normal conditions. And, our analysis shows what it is.
Last question I have is, you mentioned that the sunrise, sunset, depending upon the traffic, which you have done the pattern analysis. Is it a fixed time? Are we going to have all the year, throughout the year, or during the summertime there'll be a different time of practice will be done versus winter versus how is the timeline? Is it fixed every day or throughout the year?
That was my understanding provided by information when we prepared our report.
Okay, so assuming that this is not changing.
That's
correct. Basically.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll close to the public. We need to get a new date. All of you might wait. You might be interested in knowing that because that'll be your public notice for the next hearing on this.
Your extremely capable clerk already called me today to talk about that. I wish we could get in sooner. I was told the next meeting date that you have is July 2nd. And if we can't get in sooner than that, then we're available July 2nd.
Okay, so you won't be getting in any sooner than that. So Tawhid Dawa Center, ZBA 24-00017, will be heard here at Franklin Township Municipal Building, 475 DeMott Lane, at 7:30 p.m. on July 2nd. And then I'll need an extension letter from you.
You did get the one last time, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I
Okay.
did.
Yes, I'll agree to an extension through July 2nd, the meeting of July 2nd, and I'll follow it by letter. I may not get that to you tomorrow.
Okay,
Because I
that's
probably
fine.
won't be in my office tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Next week I will, I promise.
Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.